Fish.
Here.
Saltzman. Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
All right, could you call the first item and only item?
Item 452, accept the 2007 Regional Arts Culture Council report on the Arts Education and Access Fund.
Okay, I don't think we need to worry about that. All right, well, I think we've got kind of an unusual situation today.
Looks like they're ready to do a performance for
Yeah,
us. Is that
yeah.
so?
What are you kids here for today?
So these are the students from Boise Elliott Elementary School.
Oh.
We are PBS school.
I've heard that Boise Elliott kids are some of the smartest in the district. Do you think that's so?
Do you think so?
I think it's so because my kid went to Boise Elliott.
Oh.
Well, we would like to thank the city council for inviting us today and having us perform. We're so happy to be here. And we have 2 songs that we would love to share with you today. Is it okay if we start?
Please.
Wonderful, thank you.
When my children were your age, they would not have stood so quietly. So you very, very well done.
Carla?
Quiet, huh?
Can we?
Peace like a river. I got peace like a river.
stand up.
So, Madam President, before we say goodbye to these talented young people, a couple of comments. These are first graders at Boise Elliott Humboldt, and their teacher, Katie Robinson, is funded by the arts tax. How about that? So let's give the arts tax and the voters of Portland a big round of applause.
So I have a question. Is this just one class?
These are 3 classes.
I was a bit worried there. I know we've got tough times. Good job, everybody.
So I have a question for the first graders. How many of the young people joining us today, when they get a little older, want to sit up here in one of these chairs? All right. Well, we hope that happens. So thank you, teacher,
And I would
Katie.
especially like to thank everybody for standing for the Black National Anthem that we sung earlier. I'm sorry I forgot to announce that ahead of time, but thank you for those who recognized that and did stand, and we greatly appreciate that.
Well-
And thank you so much, City Councilor, for inviting
Thank you.
us today and having us here. We greatly appreciate you.
Okay.
Nathan, eyes this way. Eyes this way.
Wow. So, Madam President and colleagues, it's that time of the year. It's the State of the Arts in Portland. And we want to welcome everyone that took time to join us today. We are joined by RAC board members, members of the Arts Tax Oversight Committee. We're joined by leaders of nonprofit arts organizations in our community, arts advocates, patrons, donors, artists, and the whole community of people that support art and culture in our city. And today is the annual State of the Arts presentation. It is a highlight of our calendar. And I want to invite forward Eloise Damrosch, the Executive Director of the Regional Arts and Culture Council, and Mike Golub, the Board Chair, for the presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. I was actually going to sing my remarks, but after being upstaged by the Boise Elliott Humboldt folks, I think I'll change my mind. Thanks so much for giving us this forum. We so appreciate the ongoing support we get from all of you. I want a special thanks, to start with special thanks to Commissioner Fish, who's our arts liaison and a wonderful supporter and stalwart of the arts. Nick, thanks for all that you do in the community. Much appreciated, and you actually showed some rhythm moments ago, so thank you for that. And special shout out to Commissioner Udaley. In your short tenure here on the council, you've been a wonderful supporter and really engaged with the arts community, so thank you. We're really pleased that you're on the council. I'm very proud to chair the RAC board. RAC is a really unique and special organization doing some amazing things in our community. And relative to arts organizations, arts agencies around the country, we are unique in our impact and in our scope. We'll talk more about that later in our presentation. RAC was established in 1995, and over the last 22 years, we have given 5,000 grants totaling $44.3 million to artists, organizations, and schools in the Portland Tri-County area. We have also helped Portland and Multnomah County build a public art collection of more than 2,000 artworks. Each year, we engage with thousands of employees around the region through Work for Art, and this year alone, we'll serve more than 27,000 K-5 students in 68 schools through our arts integration program, the Right Brain Initiative. This next slide shows the City of Portland continues to be our largest funder and our strongest partner, contributing more than $6.3 million to RAC this year. And that piece is depicted in the blue section, the pie chart that you're looking at. The $6.3 million is comprised of $3.8 million from the general fund, $200,000 from the business license fee revenue, $2 million from the arts tax, and $270,000 in percent for art funds. Even as the arts tax collections are starting to improve, the city's general fund investments shown in this chart have declined since our high water marks in 2010, 2012, and 2015. We are deeply grateful for the support that we get from the city, and our presentation today will illustrate how RAC is leveraging that investment for a more vibrant, prosperous, and equitable Portland. And we'll take a moment today to also discuss the challenges and opportunities facing Portland's art community. As you probably hear in this chamber often, money definitely facilitates so much of what we do at RAC. And RAC has been working hard in recent years to successfully diversify our funding sources and bringing more governments, foundations, businesses, and individuals to the funding table. Our workplace giving program, Work for Art, celebrated last year its 10th anniversary and raised a record $912,000 from more than 2,000 employees across 70 different companies throughout the region. As you may know, 100% of those Work for Art proceeds go directly to arts organizations, large and small. We've also ventured into special events to raise money. On May 17th, the second annual Battle of the Bands will be staged at the Crystal Ballroom. Commissioner Udaley has been kind enough to serve as co-chair, and Jamie Dunphy and Nick Fish's office has put together a City Hall band entry, the Copper Goddess. So we welcome all of you to come rock out the Crystal Ballroom on May 17th for the second annual Battle of the Bands. Additionally, RAC has raised more than $600,000 this year from businesses, foundations, and individuals for our arts integration program, Right Brain Initiative. And just like Work for Art, Right Brain Initiative relies on grassroots donations to make it work. For the 5th straight year, Right Brain was among the top donor choices in Willamette Week's Give Guide. As all of you know, we're looking at some potentially devastating cuts to the arts at the state and federal level. The Oregon Arts Commission is facing reductions that could reduce grants to Portland area arts organizations by as much as 30%. And although the National Endowment of the Arts was spared any cuts in this year's congressional budget, which is expected to be signed by President Trump tomorrow, the NEA remains threatened and marked for elimination in fiscal year 2018. If the NEA is indeed cut next year, it would have a dramatic effect for many local arts organizations who rely on NEA funding, including the Portland Art Museum, Portland Center Stage, and our very own Right Brain Initiative. We're working with our elected officials at the state and federal level to organize grassroots advocacy efforts to do our part to prevent those cuts from happening. And consistent with input that we received from the council in previous years, we are working diligently to gain more funding from support from Clackamas, Multnomah, Washington counties, and Metro. We invite your assistance in having those discussions with those jurisdictions so we can build a stronger and truly regional arts and culture community in the years ahead.
Could you go into that in a bit more detail, please?
Eloise, you want to talk a little bit more about the support that we've gotten from the other counties and Metro?
Yes. We're hoping to have an $80,000 previous cut that happened 6 years ago from Clackamas County to get us back up to $100,000. And I think for the first time in 6 years, it's looking quite likely that the chair will make that happen. Washington County last year gave us a fairly substantial increase to pass along to the West Side Cultural Alliance, one of our partners out in who does some of the regional work that we do out in Washington County, and they're getting an increase again this year.
What's the level of that funding?
They're up to about $135,000.
Thank you.
Before I hand it over to Eloise, we realize, all of us in the arts community realize that all of you face a very difficult and set of impossible choices vis-a-vis the budget cycle this year between a lot of very deserving competing priorities. But given the arts climate on the state and federal level and the potential severe cuts that we all face, all of us in the arts community respectfully ask that you keep RAC's budget intact for the next fiscal year. Eloise.
Good afternoon, and thank you again for making time for a State of the Arts presentation. We always look forward to this opportunity to bring some art into your busy lives. I'm going to start with talking about grants. As you probably know, the majority of the city's investment goes directly into the community in the form of grants. This year, we're investing $4.3 million for general operating support, grants for projects, arts equity, professional development, and individual artist fellowships. Rather than going into these programs in detail, I'd like to invite 3 grant recipients to tell you their stories: Brian Weaver, Jeffrey Hiller, and Damaris Webb. So would you please come up and share your stories with council?
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Brian Weaver, Artistic Director of Portland Playhouse. We're a new beneficiary of general operating support. Portland Playhouse is a place where people can come together and share creative experiences in a personally meaningful way. And at a time when artists are being displaced, we're a success story of Portland's neighborhood system, and active participation from community-led from the community, including council, finding a path to keep this creative hub alive in the neighborhood about 4 years ago. So thank you for that. Through the Portland Playhouse general operating support, we've performed after-school programs at King, Boise Elliott, St. Andrew's Nativity, Da Vinci, De La Salle, Franklin, MLC, and Roosevelt High School. RAC General Operating Support helped fund Community Coming Together, a series of facilitated conversations about race and gentrification in a neighborhood led by Tanisha Jones, founder of Homegirl Consulting. RAC General Operating Support helped fund Christina Anderson's play Penmanship, August Wilson's How I Learned What I Learned, directed by Kevin Jones, founder of the August Wilson Red Door Project, and our current show, Julia Cho's play The Language Archive, directed by Adriana Baer. Why is public money for the arts important? Public money is important because it comes with the public's priorities. And as RAC chooses to prioritize equity, diversity, and inclusion, it is important this is having a positive impact on the cultural life of our city. I'd like to share an email that Philip Wafula sent to a listserv of people of color who work for the city of Portland. My fellow peers, my name is Philip. I'm at BDS, and along with a few folks over at PBOT, we recently watched the play Penmanship. It was simply amazing, maybe the best I have seen to date, and that is me speaking as a young black man that has watched many a production. Still, this hit home so excellently and is a must-see. The best part about it is it has such an intimate feel. I think the very essence of attending live plays will be an experience most of you will savor preciously, especially if you're looking for after-work activities that have the perfect balance of piquing your interests and entertainment. I found this email that Philip sent very moving, and it had a large impact on our audience 2 days later. Which leads me to my closing thought, which is that sharing creative experiences motivates people to take action, to participate, and to grow our community into a place that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Hiller. I'm a documentary photographer. Waiting for the photographs. I've been a documentary photographer for 40 years, focusing on place, community throughout the world. Portland has been my home for the past 25 years. During my career, I've received 3 project grants from RAC. For example, I was able to produce a short film about local musician Obo Adi in 2006. My last project for RAC was about the people and places along the TriMet Bus 75 line that runs on the east side from St. John's to Milwaukee. I chose this bus line to show various aspects of hidden Portland, neighborhoods that are in the process of change but have retained their original old Portland character. This project took over 1 year to complete and culminated in a website and an exhibition in Northeast Portland. In addition to the thousands of viewers who followed the work online, the photographs were featured on the BBC, the Atlantic, and the Smithsonian. Without the RAC funding of $5,200, I would not have been able to complete this project. Most definitely would not have been able to complete this project. My team included a writer, a project manager, in-kind sponsorship, and various subject matter experts, including Jarrett Walker, who's a public transportation expert. Together, we spent well over 2,000 hours working on this project, researching, photographing, and interviewing passengers, businesses, and residents along the bus line. You can all do the math. What a great value to RAC and the city of Portland. Thank you.
Hello, City Council and Mayor. I'm Damaris Webb, and I'm grateful to be able to speak to you today about what RAC funding has made possible for me, especially in producing and directing local playwright Rich Rubin's new play, Cottonwood in the Flood, for last year's inaugural Vanport Mosaic Festival. RAC funding allows individual artists, as well as organizations, to share the stories that need to be told. Their investment in new work goes deeper than one production, acknowledging the importance that art making has in civic life and the health of our communities. My 2016 individual project grant from RAC made it possible to bring a new play from a staged reading in 2015 to a full production in 2016, using local designers and performers while growing grassroots community across the city. Cottonwood in the Flood followed a 3-generation African-American family's migration from Selma, Alabama, to work Henry Kaiser's shipyards here in World War II. In the story, they are subsequently washed into Portland after the Memorial Day flood of 1948 destroys the entire city of Vanport in a few hours. At its height, the true city of Vanport was the second largest city in Oregon, a truly American melting pot of 48,000 from 46 states. Yet it's a chapter of Portland's history that seems to have been forgotten. Cottonwood in the Flood offered the opportunity for former residents who are still alive to be celebrated and share their lived history in post-matinee conversations. They engaged with local audiences, many of whom had never heard this history or only knew of the Memorial Day flood, and not the resilience and the importance of the people who lived there. Thanks to RAC and Portland Parks and Recreation support, our 3-week sold-out run was presented at North Portland's Interstate Firehouse Cultural Center, historically an important artistic home to the African American community. The production was featured as a part of the inaugural Vanport Mosaic Festival, which offered multiple entry points into the history of Vanport and for those who lived there, including a gallery installation at the firehouse that ran in tandem with all of the performances. RAC was instrumental to our initial success and has empowered us to offer even more through this year's festival, including new plays, tours at the former site, a workshop for educators, screenings of oral history documentaries, and exhibits. So please join us this May 26th through 29th. We couldn't do this without you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Can I just observe that I had the pleasure of seeing penmanship live, and afterwards, one of the actors came up and we asked, what was it like performing the show? And the interesting feedback was it's performed in water. And so the entire cast is barefoot in water, and the actor said that over time, the water got a little old. But it was brilliant.
Great. As part of our comprehensive equity initiative, RAC is now investing arts tax and Multnomah County funds in community-based organizations that are expanding arts access for marginalized communities. And you heard some of those kinds of stories just now. Last year, we awarded $120,000 in 21 arts equity grants, including the Instituto de Cultura y Arte, the Association of Russian-Speaking Compatriots, and Kukatonan Children's African Dance Troupe. A new round of arts equity grants will be announced at the end of this month, so stay tuned for more news. And the applications each year have been almost doubling. In late June, we'll be publishing a comprehensive economic impact study to illuminate how investments in nonprofit arts organizations support the regional economy. We already know that nonprofit arts organizations in Portland spent more than $205 million last year on goods, services, and payroll. We're also working to quantify the impact of audience-related spending, because we all know that hotels, restaurants, parking garages, and retail outlets, not to mention babysitters, all benefit from arts organizations as well. So stay tuned for that full report. Public art, as you know, is an important way to bring artwork to all of our community free of charge. Here are some of the things that we completed this past year. With a modest annual budget of $40,000, RAC provided matching funds for 19 murals in all quadrants of the city. The program is gaining a national reputation with the help of the creative artists bringing their imaginations to walls all over the city. For example, the Woodstock Stakeholders Group envisions using art to revitalize their business district, and the artist team, Rather Severe, began painting 3 murals in the neighborhood last November. Stakeholders say their Woodstock Street Art Project is busy identifying more locations for all sizes and types of artwork on Woodstock. Paint Outside the Lines is a street art campaign that is a program of apt art, awareness and prevention through art. This pioneering program, founded by Portlander Samantha Robeson, shares artistic experience with conflict-affected and marginalized youth. For one of their 2006 projects, they matched Montreal artist Kevin Lido with ERCO's Refugee and Immigration Student Empowerment Program at David Douglas High School to create positive messaging about immigrants' experiences. For the second year, we're partnering with Open Signal on Night Lights. On first Thursdays, we project the work of local artists and university students on the side of RAC's offices on Northwest Gleason. Kalima Abayoto was our artist in residence this year with Open Signal, and you heard from her a few weeks ago when Open Signal presented to council, I believe. For the past 2 years, RAC has been pleased to work under the leadership of the community-driven Honoring the History of Williams Avenue Committee, which emerged from PBOT's Williams Avenue Safety Project. The committee chose artists Cleo Davis and Kyan Talton Davis to create artwork that honors the history and contributions of the Black community along Williams Avenue. These are 2 of the 20 signs and 10 tile murals that will soon be installed. There'll be a public celebration of the artwork on June 3rd at noon in Dawson Park, and we will dedicate new artwork by Isaka Shamsuddin that same day in the park. This map locates new projects in parks funded by the city's 2% for Art ordinance, and I'm happy to see how well sprinkled they are around the area. One of these, River Garden by Lillian Pitt, was dedicated in January along the South Waterfront Greenway. This was another collaboration, this time between the Portland Parks and Recreation Native American Community Advisory Council and RAC.
May I just take this moment to thank you on behalf of Parks for all of those lovely artworks that are going, many of them into parks, and we very much appreciate the partnership.
Yeah, and it's great being able to put art in parks that have never had, well, they haven't been a park or they're a park without art. So it's great. Thank you for your help with that. Our next big city project is the Portland Building. At long last, it is going to happen, right? Our lobby installation space will go on hiatus during construction, but will return to a prominent second-floor location after the construction's finished. Portlandia will get a thorough cleaning. The 2% provides funding for maintenance of the city's collection, and will also fund new artworks for this important public building. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Sabina Hack, who will tell you about her artist residency this past year in the Portland Archives Record Center.
Hello, I'm Sabina Hawk, and my work explores the forgotten and lost histories in our communities. In 2016, I was the artist in residence at the Portland City Archives and the Record Center. I learned through the city archives that in the 1980s, Portland annexed 140,000 people in the city's largest land expansion to date. As I interviewed community members, I discovered that annexation was a controversial battle, and decisions were often made without community input. The top-down process 35 years ago resulted in a lot of people being excluded from the city's policies of growth in East Portland. This work resulted in an animated film, an installation, and an image theater performance on 82nd Avenue in the Jade Apano space, and it also traveled to Open Signal on Northeast MLK. New residents in the area were not aware of the history of annexation, and they were deeply affected by its impact on East Portland. For longtime residents, the artwork provided an opportunity to preserve their own history and to foster those very important conversations about inclusion, inclusive policies, and creative placekeeping. The Image Theater workshop explored how the neighborhood identity has evolved in the last 35 years. At the intersection of 82nd and Division, the children from the Harrison Park School performed image stories with their bodies. What does it feel like to be excluded, and how do we find belonging? These young voices in today's community that spoke 20 different languages, yet they all came together with their families to express the true joy of what it means to belong in a place. 40% of all of our youth live in East Portland past the line of 82nd, and it is the most diverse and rapidly growing section of the city. This art project not only shed light to lost lived histories, but it also gave a voice to the needs and aspirations of this vibrant neighborhood and community. I'm happy to tell you that this project has received additional funding from outside sources as well as city sources. Apano and East Portland Action Plan are helping me to provide further programming to students at Madison High School, David Douglas students, and the youth builders in Lentz to explore art as a means of personal expression, civic engagement, and youth empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabina. Now, moving on to arts education. As you all know, the arts tax, and you saw this morning, the arts tax is now funding at least one art or music teacher in every K-5 school in Portland. RAC also receives a small allocation from the arts tax to coordinate technical assistance and other arts education services for these arts specialists. Region-wide, we're extremely proud of the impact we're having through the Right Brain Initiative. Now in its 9th year, Right Brain is serving a total of 27,500 students in 68 schools across the Tri-County region, 8,600 of whom are from 22 schools in Portland. So we're really getting this program out there. In these schools, teachers and teaching artists are revitalizing classrooms through arts-integrated teaching and learning, where the arts become the pathway for students to understand complex concepts in science, math, language arts, and social studies. In these learning environments, they gain skills as creative and critical thinkers essential to the success in our ever-changing world. A public and private funding model makes it all possible and exemplifies the collective effort necessary to sustain the program. And we're so thankful to the City of Portland for being the largest public investor in this vital program. Right Brain's impact is recognized far and wide. At the invitation of the National Endowment for the Arts, RAC's Director of Arts Education, Marna Stalka, traveled to Washington, D.C. this spring to share the program's success with the National Council on the Arts. She was accompanied by 2 Hillsborough students who presented their stop-motion animation on the cycle of a cell that they created for a 6th grade science unit on the topic. And now I'm delighted to introduce to you Essence Taylor, a freshman at Grant High School who attended Beach School from 2nd through 8th grade and benefited from Right Brain throughout her time there. And it's so exciting that we finally have an alum of Right Brain who's going to tell us about her experience. Welcome.
Thank you, and good afternoon. As Ms. Damrosch said, I was lucky to have the Right Brain Initiative the entire time I was at Beach School, which was a long time. Some of my best memories at school were the days Right Brain artists came into my classroom. In 3rd grade, we studied Ghanaian drumming, where I learned that each person's solo was an important part of the whole performance. That was terrifying. Then in 4th grade, I learned ballroom dancing, so now I can brag to my friends that I know how to waltz, and they don't. It was in 7th and 8th grade that my class worked with the storyteller Rick Huddle, who taught us how to create an inspiring story from our own lives and open up to each other. I learned so much about people I'd known for such a long time, and I learned so much about myself. The experience enriched our bonds with each other and created a community within the classroom, the middle school classrooms, that is. I also discovered my own voice, and that is a lesson I've taken with me, which has given me confidence that I didn't have before. My middle school teacher, Miss Beck, deserves a lot of credit for being such a great teacher. She says it's because she learned so much from Right Brain teacher trainings. And when she went to those trainings, we were really upset that she had to go. But when she came back, she brought new experiences for us and reasons to get up out of our seats and learn in an active way. For example, we would use Tableau to show our understanding of a concept or event from history or language arts. Now that I'm at Grant High School, I'm so thankful for these experiences that have helped me come out of my shell. I would never have been comfortable speaking in front of a large group of people, and I would never have imagined that I would be in a theater class taking the lead in a scene we are studying and feeling confident every time we do Tableau. Or that I would volunteer to be one of the representatives at Grant High School Black Student Union going to Salem to speak with legislators about the importance of cultural diversity in our curriculum. And that I would one day teach my ex-boyfriend how to slow dance the right way. Thank you for your support of the Right Brain Initiative, and thank you for listening. This experience today has prepared me for the speech that I have to do in history to a large group of 9th graders, which is probably going to be way harder than speaking here right now. So, thank you.
I think you'll do fine. Congratulations.
In addition to all of these programs, RAC continues to be the go-to resource for local artists. We provide workshops and other forms of technical assistance that help artists and makers hone their craft, learn new skills, and build their businesses. RAC also plays an important role in convening and celebrating artists and arts leaders. We've been partnering with community organizations like Portland Youth Builders, Apano, and YGB to play with new formats for our ArtSpark networking events, which are now attracting record numbers of new and diverse artists and creatives. Looking ahead, I'm pleased to report that we are enjoying new levels of engagement from City Hall in addressing some of the challenges that we face in our community. I want to thank Jennifer Arguizzoni in the Mayor's office, Jamie Dunphy in Commissioner Fish's office, and Polly Ann Burge in Commissioner Udaley's office for helping us develop a shared agenda for arts and culture in the City of Portland, which we will be sharing over the coming months with our arts community. Equity is the #1 priority for staff and board. RAC must find a way to distribute city resources more equitably and secure more funding to help us invest in the communities that have not benefited from RAC services in the past. I'm pleased to announce that we have just launched a new capacity building initiative for culturally specific organizations, and we'd love the city's help in providing more grants and technical assistance to the organizations that need it the most. We are also working with city staff to explore ways to preserve and create affordable spaces for artists and arts organizations so they don't get priced out of the central city. And I know you're all well aware of that, and it's really the time is now. Portland has long been known as a center for creativity and a community that values its artists. We must do more to retain these creatives and support the innovations that artists can bring to businesses and government. Artists are entrepreneurs and small business owners too. Mike.
So no conversation about opportunities and challenges in the arts community would be complete without discussion of the arts tax. And as you may know, the Oregon Supreme Court held a hearing 2 months ago, the 6th and final legal challenge to the arts tax. Commissioner Fish and Eloise were present, and the city attorney did a terrific job at arguing our case. We are hopeful that a favorable ruling will be issued soon. Meanwhile, arts tax collections are improving incrementally, but even under the best case scenarios, the current construct of the arts tax will fall short of fulfilling the promise to the voters and investing in the arts organizations at the levels they expected. So we are actively searching for funding sources that can help fill the gap. And we're actually exploring the possibility of modifying the arts tax in a way that can raise more money more equitably through a ballot measure initiative in 2020. And obviously, we'll work very closely with Commissioner Fish and all of you as those discussions progress. Wanted to take this moment to recognize Eloise. This may be her last opportunity, at least in her current role, before the City Council. Eloise has been Executive Director of RAC since 2004, but it's been with previous iteration of RAC since 1987, 30 years of service to the arts community, and it goes without saying that she has left an indelible imprimatur on the arts community. The arts community is in a much better place thanks to Eloise and her amazing contribution. So I want to take this public opportunity from behalf of the arts community, all of us at RAC, the board and staff, to publicly thank Eloise for your incredible service.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank you for not only your kind words, but your fabulous leadership. It's great to have you as board chair as I sail off into whatever's next. It's kind of hard to think about how you talk about 30 years of your life. But I've been so lucky to have a job that I've wanted to be in for 30 years and to work with this organization for so long. And we started as a tiny but mighty little bureau of Multnomah County in the city of Portland. And now, many years later, we're a flourishing tri-county nonprofit arts council. And because of that, we can expand our services and our opportunities across the region. And also, the nonprofit status allows us to be more entrepreneurial and create programs like Work for Art and the Right Brain Initiative that we really couldn't do if we were part of city government. And it's a way that we're leveraging the new funds that we've talked about often here. And you heard all about, you know about those programs by now. I'm looking back to things I'm really excited and proud about, raising the percent from 1% to 2% over the years, and thinking more broadly and deeply about how artwork can impact the social fabric of our city. And I think you've heard today from some of the people who testified and joined us that whether it's through a play or visual art or a mural, we're partnering with people doing really important work beyond commissioning artwork, which of course is what we're all about also. So that's been a steady trend that I'm really thrilled about, and I think it makes art so much more relevant when you can see how it creates intersections among people. And you know, who knew we'd ever pass an arts tax, right? I mean, it made us famous overnight in my world. And as we've already talked about, all is not shiny and bright moving forward. We must do something about the affordability of this community, because we're watching as artists leave. They have to search for housing, they have to search for places to work, and dozens of arts organizations have been priced out of the Central East Side especially, and we have to help them find new homes. The equity work is vitally important as our city changes so quickly, and we are committed as ever to that, and we'll continue to do that, and I've talked about some of the ways we're working on that. And as Mike just said, government and business support is growing, but we at some point need to figure out how to fill the arts tax bucket.
To be fair, it's the first time this year that it's been included in TurboTax, and
yes,
much more easy to do. So I do think we are getting better as time goes by.
Yes, and I think the city putting some pressure on non-payers over the summer and fall not only brought a lot of the payments in, but hopefully made people think twice about just blowing off the arts tax. You know, it's not optional. And last, and hardly least, I just want to tout the amazing staff that has built up over the years with RAC. We've had people come and stay. We've had young people come and contribute wonderful ideas and energy, and then move on to other things. But this is a staff that's creative, they're committed, they're whip smart, and they're just delightful people to work with. And I want to thank Priscilla for helping me today, who is about to take herself off to graduate school in Europe. So we are sorry to see her go. And then, of course, our wonderful board, which is a group of incredibly talented, multifaceted individuals from all through our community. They're diverse, they're generous, and they're a wonderful group of people to work with, and I feel tremendously lucky.
Eloise, could the current board members that are here please stand just so we can recognize you at this moment? Let's give them a round.
And may I ask staff to stand as well, please? So, many thanks. It's been a wonderful, wild ride over the years, and I know I will stay committed to the arts community that I love. I can't possibly stop doing that. So thank you for all that you do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloise. Paula, how many people signed up?
I have 3.
So
I have a question,
yeah.
for me. So you mentioned about your efforts to get other governments to donate, and I noticed particularly in the Right Brain Initiative schools that those are spread all over the metro area. You mentioned Washington County and Clackamas County. How are the schools in Gresham being funded?
Through the district.
So they are contributing as well?
Oh, yes. In fact, they were the first district to have all of their elementary schools participating in Right Brain.
Okay. So lots of those costs are through the public school districts. And what is the next step in terms of getting other jurisdictions, particularly the fairly affluent ones like Lake Oswego and others that could come to mind to get
For
them
city support or for right brain support?
for the regional arts commission? It seems like Portland's taxpayers are picking up a lot of the slack, which we do because we appreciate the arts and because we recognize it's about jobs as well as about the wonderful things that art bring on a heart and mind level. And it would seem appropriate for other governments, other cities, to give you a commensurate grant.
Well, I think what has been happening over the years is that, and with our encouragement, I must say, that we encourage municipalities in the region to support their local arts organizations. So Beaverton has a long-standing arts commission that lives at the city. Lake Oswego has one. In fact, just about every municipality now has some kind of an arts organization to do the work locally. And then as we know, Beaverton is about to build a performing arts center. Sherwood built one, so it's a pursuit that's a little bit challenging because of that, because we want them to invest in their locals. And it's been, frankly, a challenge over the years to get the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners, especially the outlying counties, to understand why their county money should come to Portland, even though it comes back to the county and we leverage other funds. So it's kind of a dance.
Possibly, as people do move out because it's less affordable here, those folks can help lobby their new governments to assist. And maybe, Commissioner, I'm wondering if we could get information on the addresses of season ticket holders at Portland 5, or, just to try to figure out who is it that's coming to downtown Portland to enjoy the ballet and the symphony and the things which really are a regional treasure.
By the way, that's a terrific idea. I'm assuming that your the economic impact analysis will tell us a little bit more about our audience. Is that right?
Yes, and Washington County, I believe, is doing it also out there. And remember also that when we first started, the first year of discussing the arts tax, we were doing it regionally. We had this monster committee of over 50 people, and it was so clear that politically it would never come together.
Well, that's why I'm wondering when Mr. Golub said we're going to maybe do something else in 2020, it would be helpful to see if we can, at this point, do it regionally. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly for those who are watching is that last year the mayor set aside $1 million in special appropriations, which a committee got to decide where to put it, and a grant did go to Milagros Theatre. It looks, certainly under the mayor's proposed this year, there's also that same pot of money. So arts organizations, get your applications ready.
They will. I'm sure they will.
Because, this city council, I know, and our community does value all of the work that you do, and just magnifies the other wonderful things that we have going for us in this region. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
So we have a presentation, but we have 3 people testifying. So if you could both resume your seats, we'll take the 3 people who signed up, and then we have a special presentation. Carla?
They are Paul Lumley, Subhashini Ganesan, I believe his last name, and Sue Pack.
Good afternoon, members of the City Council. It's a great honor to be here. My name is Paul Lumley, and I'm a citizen of the Yakima Nation and Executive Director of the Native American Youth and Family Center. And I have had the great pleasure of working with RAC for many years now, and can't tell you how pleased we are with some of the more recent developments, with the way they've been including communities of color in arts throughout the whole Portland area, with murals and artists. It's just been wonderful. The most recent event we had with RAC is they had opened their doors to my organization's Native Family and Friends Night, and when they did so, I was so pleased to see so much of the Native community come out and fill their offices in a way that was so warm and welcoming by the RAC staff and the community. It was just an amazing experience. I've also been able to see how RAC has expanded in their equity and inclusion platform throughout the city, and I very sorry to see Eloise Dombrose retire. She's been a wonderful friend. She has carried herself with courage and conviction, grace and elegance, and really cares about the community that she serves. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so disappointed to see her retire, but so happy to hear that the community does still embrace her. Now, as the chair of the Coalition of Communities of Color, I also want to say that I hope that whoever is selected as the new executive director, they continue to carry on the great work that they've started with equity and inclusion. We'll be watching from afar and hoping for good work in the future. We stand here in strong support of RAC and also in partnership with the city and hopeful that they receive full funding now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners, for this opportunity to speak with you. As an immigrant from Singapore of South Asian descent, as an artist who practices Bharatanatyam, an ancient dance form from South India, as an artistic director who uses my foundation in Bharatanatyam to produce contemporary and accessible performances, as a teaching artist through the Right Brain Initiative, as an advocate and avid supporter of multicultural, multidisciplinary, multi-genre emerging performing artists in our city, and as the founder, curator, and manager of New Expressive Works, often called New, on Southeast 8th and Belmont, a fully accessible, intimate performing arts venue, I'm pleased to address you. My 75-seat intimate performance studio has from day one been aligned with community needs and values. We continue to meet the growing needs of independent performing artists to provide diverse, inexpensive, artistic experiences for thousands of local audience members. Culturally specific artists in Bharatanatyam, Japanese taiko, Ghanaian drumming, Argentine tango, and belly dance thrive in New. The Disability Arts and Culture Project and Zaftig Dance, who nurture body positivity, call New their home. And a unique intensive urban residency program since 2012 has offered 32 choreographers free rehearsal space, modest stipend, and a culminating weekend performance. RAC has stepped in and helped me both as an artist and as an arts administrator. Through project grants and the Cultural Leadership Program, RAC provides their maximum support and strength to New. As real estate prices rise dramatically, squeezing artists out of the city, RAC continues to provide what they can. Pro bono expertise to help me negotiate commercial real estate, leases, or city and county permits, and real estate tax issues. The list goes on. I'm grateful to RAC. The 200 independent performing artists and 5,000 audience members who annually benefit from news programming are also very grateful to RAC. However, my building owners are guided by financial imperatives. They appreciate, but ultimately cannot be interested, as you, in the cultural imperatives of our city that my space is meeting. It seems clear that at this time of our nation's history, different voices need to be heard. Different racial voices, different ethnic voices, different religious voices, different gender voices, and different ability voices. And art is a way for these voices to be heard peacefully and positively. Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Would you tell us your name, please?
Subhashini Ganesan.
Thank you.
Thank you. I always forget that.
Oh, okay. What would you do? Vote to accept the report? Okay. So now we will vote to accept the report.
I move the acceptance of the report.
Second.
And I request that Commissioner Fish please go last.
Saltzman?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the always uplifting report from the Regional Arts and Culture Council. And thank you, Eloise, for all your years of service. It's very impressive, and I wish you the best for what's next. And just want to say that's really, I'm very impressed with the depth and the caliber of artists and performing artists and theater groups in the city. I'm constantly amazed how many organizations the city and its residents and residents of the region support. It's very impressive for a city our size. I think we rival, some of the bigger cities, certainly the Chicagos and Seattles and I won't say New York, but nothing rivals New York.
Yeah.
But I'm very impressed with the depth of artistic talent and expression in our city, and very pleased to be a part of this, and happy to support you. Aye.
Fritz.
I also really appreciate, especially the emphasis on equity and broadening the benefits to all of our community and being intentional about communities that haven't had access before. So I thank you for that. We're still working on it, and it will, like the rest of the equity initiatives within the city, we're nowhere near done, but we are committed to it. And so I thank you for your leadership on that, Eloise. As I always mention when this report comes to council, my daughter was a theatre major at Willamette University. She's now going to practice her acting by going to law school, which I think is a very, very good fit. But every year since she was in the 8th grade, we go down to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival to see plays, obviously. And we're always very judicious about when we do the standing ovation. We kind of look at each other and because everything, of course, is really fantastic, so you really could stand up every time, but we feel like, let's be judicious. And there's often times when she and I immediately stand up together, and that was what I wanted to do for you, Eloise, that absolutely deserving of the best standing ovation. And from the arts community, thank you, and happy trails. Aye.
You, Daly.
Thank you for the report, and I share appreciation with my colleagues of your emphasis on equity. Arts are a equalizing force in our community and should be a place where everyone can be included and participate. As some of you know, I am in a kind of foreign territory at City Hall, and so it feels really good to feel at home in this room full of artists and arts supporters. I had one more thing to say. Well, Eloise, thank you for all your hard work and the opportunities that you afforded me. Full disclosure, I once received a RAC grant for $500 when I was 24 years old. It was for professional development and allowed me to attend a national conference, and it felt pretty special to be acknowledged by, the establishment. And look at me now. Thank you. The report is accepted. Oh.
So,
Oh my goodness.
Uh-oh, too late.
I'm telling you.
On to the next item.
Commissioner Fish.
thank you, Madam President. I want to begin by thanking Mike Golub and Eloise for the presentation. And you hear from all my colleagues every year that this is a highlight of the year. And when we watch the State of the Union, it used to be the tradition that the president would say, and the State of the Union is strong. That may not be possible today at the federal level. The National Endowment for the Arts is 52 years old. With the exception of our friend from Grant High School and a few of the younger people here, many of the people in this audience have enjoyed public art funded by the federal government throughout their entire adult lives. We all have, actually, 3 of the 4 of us have. And we're debating at the federal level whether we're going to continue to support arts and culture, something that has been settled for 52 years. So the state of the arts federally, there's a big question mark. The state of the arts locally is strong. And it is, I think, largely because of Eloise's 30-year career of steadfast support for the arts in our community. So I'm going to save for the very end another remark about Eloise because we have a presentation. But I also want to acknowledge a couple of the leaders that are here that don't get enough recognition. The 2 chairs of the Arts Oversight Committee are here. They have done yeoman's work with their committees to build public trust. Stan Pankin, Stan, would you please stand? Stan Pankin, the former chair. And I saw Craig Gibbons. He may be here or next door, but Craig is here. Let's give Craig a round of applause for his. We are losing one of the brightest lights in our community in the arts, and I'd be remiss since he's here if I didn't also say to my friend Stephen Mark Baudois, Thank you for a great run at Fame, and thank you, and God bless you in your news. So, Stephen, would you please stand and take a bow? I'd also like to thank the board members that are here today who serve with great purpose and conviction, and who are going to be helping to guide the search for Eloise's replacement. You do not replace Eloise Damrosch. But I suspect that there will be tremendous interest nationally because of the reputation that RAC has, that she has burnished. So we will look to the board to do the impossible task of leading a process to find a replacement. And Mike, at some point, we probably should post how people in the public can weigh in with you and the search committee along the way. We want to thank the staff at RAC. And many of them are here today, and they do fantastic work. And we're very fortunate to have such a committed group of people, so thank you. We're joined today also by grant recipients, by champions for the arts, arts leaders, special guests from local schools, including Grant and Boise Elliott in the first grade. And Eloise, that was an inspired choice to start with the first graders. Pretty amazing. And a teacher funded by the arts tax. So next time someone says to you, what does the arts tax buy? That's the answer. I want to acknowledge that Eloise was very modest in her comments about the things that have happened under her watch, the 1% becoming 2% for public art, the arts tax, which has now survived 5 legal challenges, and I think we're all reasonably confident the Oregon Supreme Court will have the final say, and so we can put that fight behind us. Advancing an equity conversation, which is not an easy conversation, because when you have a fixed pot of money, equity means allocating money differently. And I think we've all had experience doing that, and that often produces some pushback. So this is not just equity in words, this is equity in deeds, and it is controversial. And thank you for leading that effort. Thank you for being a presence in our community and representing the organization and our city so wonderfully. There is no adequate way for us to thank Eloise for her service, and we're not going to try to do that today. There'll be other events where we can embarrass her. But Eloise, would you please come forward for a moment? On behalf of the City Council, we wanted to present you with this rather modest floral arrangement. We're, after all, cutting budgets this year, so yeah. It is rather modest. Think about this more as the spirit behind it. But thank you for a wonderful run. And we look forward to continuing to have your leadership after you relinquish the chair. To Eloise Damrosch. Let's give everybody a round of applause. And finally, I'd like to thank Jamie Dunphy on my team for doing such great work as my liaison. It is with great pride today that I vote aye. Madam President.
All right. I did remember what I forgot, which was a special request to please bring back the students every year, because this chamber could really use some of that life. Gosh, wouldn't it be fun to follow them?
I don't know, Commissioner Udalli. We've had some pretty spectacular performances here in Council. I'm always just wondering what are they going to do next year. So
All right,
I'll tell you about it.
I want the
vote
opera
for
singers.
singing,
The opera singers to come again.
Yeah, the opera singers.
Okay. The report is now accepted.
Yay.
Before we discuss next year's.
Carla, could you read the next item?
Can we take a 3-minute break?
Oh, sure. We will be taking a 3-minute break to allow people to exit and enter. Welcome, everyone. We are now back in session. Do we call the roll after a break? No. Okay. Carla, please call the next item.
Do you want to read both of those items or one at a time?
Yes, let's read them together.
Okay. Item 453, Transmit East Portland Action Plan 2017 Annual Presentation. And 454, authorize $73,996 total in grant agreements for the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, East Portland Action Plan 2017 Civic Engagement Grant Agreements to further community involvement.
Excellent, thank you. So, colleagues, it's my pleasure to introduce the East Portland Action Plan and Civic Engagement Grant report. I was very pleased to be named EPAP's liaison, as I have a tremendous amount of respect for their work, as well as a shared concern about how we as a city prioritize and make equitable investments across our entire city. EPAP is a model for how civic engagement among diverse populations can make meaningful, lasting impact on our communities. I want to give a special shout out to Laura Wintergreen. Who has been a tireless advocate for raising the voices of East Portland residents. I think her inclusive and accessible style of facilitating EPAP will be made abundantly clear during this presentation, as there are at least 18 people here representing many different communities who will be participating in the presentation. Thank you for everything you do, Laura. And with that, I would like to invite Joanne Hardesty to get, is this not?
Karen Fisher
Okay,
Gray.
sorry about that. Somebody's in trouble.
It's all good.
I would like to invite Karen Fisher Gray to give the opening remarks and introduce the program.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here year after year for the annual EPAP report to City Council. Good afternoon, Portland City Council. My name is Dr. Karen Fisher Gray, and I've been the superintendent of the Park Rose School District for the last 10 years. I am also the chair of the Oregon Educator Equity Advisory Council, whose role it is to attract and retain a diverse Oregon education workforce. Thank you for allowing me the time to introduce this wonderful group of people to you today and to have the opportunity to tell you about the great work that the East Portland Action Plan is doing. I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with many people living in East Portland on EPAP as a community-based social and economic equity project since it began. EPAP began the year I came to Portland in 2007 with Mayor Potter and then County Chair Ted Wheeler. While my attendance at the monthly meetings has dropped, I attend the quarterly technical assistance countywide meetings with the City of Portland and remain committed to its work to further livability and economic equity in our part of Portland. As a 5-year Planning and Sustainability Commissioner from 2010 to 2015, I was an EPAP champion, and I will remain so forever. EPAP's leadership and guidance is on how to strategically address community-identified issues and to allocate resources to improve livability and prevent displacement. This is our vision, and this is our work. The 2017 strategic priorities, shown in Exhibit B, are established annually by full consensus of the EPAP. And if you want to know what full consensus means, it means that every single member of this giant committee, it's the biggest committee you ever saw, one person can actually stop an action. So everyone has to agree or find a way to agree. It's really quite amazing and interesting to watch. This year's strategic priorities will be addressed by the speakers as outlined in Exhibit A, which is your agenda for today. Our strategic priorities range from civic engagement of a vast array of people of different races, cultures, ethnicities, and gender expressions, to economic development for East Portland, housing, parks, transportation, as well as how to prevent involuntary displacement, a topic well discussed in both the comp plan and the Portland plan. Involuntary displacement prevention recommendations for East Portland were first developed by 3 EPAP subcommittees: civic engagement, economic development, and housing, over a 9-month study period. The subcommittee cross-reviewed the recommendations, and a draft was translated into 8 different languages, with community engagement liaisons identifying and reviewing the recommendations with community stakeholders for the month before a community meeting review. 200 people were in attendance, 90% people of color, or first language different than English. Based upon the community review, the recommendations changed, and the full general EPAP approved the document you now have as Exhibit C. The speakers to follow will address Exhibit D, 6-month update of the 2017 strategic priorities and involuntary displacement prevention recommendations. In addition, they will call out what support we need from you, City Council, in order to move forward on these issues. These are very near and dear to us. Based upon the annual geographic budget mapping done, the City Budget Office, with the help of Nick Salvi, produced a 6-year city spending analysis document, also Exhibit E, that demonstrates progress and investment in East Portland parks. Some transportation progress, but an inability to meet fair share, let alone equitable spending, and severe underspending from the Housing Bureau. This continues to be a crucial issue for people living east of 82nd Avenue. We really encourage you to review Exhibit E, the 6-year city spending analysis document, as it has been a big priority of EPAPs to attain parity of spending across all of the city of Portland. The EPAP 2017 Strategic Priorities, Exhibit B, asks that A, the city set a goal that East Portland attain parity with other parts of the city in developing and maintaining public facilities and capital spending by encouraging prioritization of the projects in East Portland where they are sorely needed and have been sorely needed for a decade or more. This, in my opinion, is called equity. B, institutionalization of the geographic mapping of city spending, that this information we actively reviewed and consider when establishing city budgets. This started with Mayor Adams, a big champion of East Portland and also of our schools. And we began on a good foot with this through the city auditor's office. And I remember that first meeting where we had the city auditor come out to an EPAP meeting, put stuff up all across the wall, and show us where the money was spent and show us geographically by mapping where the services were across the city. It was quite eye-opening, and it was great evidence of what we were looking for. There was an annual report to EPAP by the city showing geographic mapping of city spending and city services, and then it fell away. It's very discouraging. Letter C, develop the equivalent of a quadrant plan for East Portland. As a Planning and Sustainability Commissioner, I was very aware of the Central City Quadrant plans. During my time on PSC, I asked many times, where's the quadrant plan for East Portland? I never got an answer. Millions and millions of dollars are involved in the 4 quadrant plans. And believe me, I get why the development of the central city is important. But I don't ever see anything put into planning specifically for East Portland in quite the same manner. And I was even told, well, the quadrant plans go all the way to Southeast 12th. That's nice. I live on 132nd. So frankly, Southeast 12th does not go far enough. So where's the plan? Where do we get the funding for EPAP? So at a bare minimum, please fund the funding for EPAP. Letter D, please continue ongoing funding of the EPAP advocacy until an action plan is completely, our action plan is completely implemented. The $200,000 or $300,000 the city gives EPAP is money more than well spent because we leverage those dollars. It is never a one-to-one. It is always leveraged for many more dollars than what we get. It's kind of like the school districts. You get your money's worth out of our fantastic advocate, Laura Wintergreen, without whom none of this would have happened. If funds are small, but they're powerful and they give grants to the community, something you're going to hear about later, It pays for translation into our many languages. It is teeny tiny money. Please recognize what your dollars are investing in, and in my opinion, stop making us have to beg for them every year. I just want to make sure that they get into the budget, and maybe they're already in the budget, but make sure they're in the budget and they stay there so that people don't have to keep apologizing for or making up reasons to keep it there.
May I just interrupt for a second? It is
Yeah.
in the ongoing, for this year and last year, no even mention of it in the only budget
Two big
hearing.
thumbs up,
Yeah,
Commissioner
so
Fritz. We are delighted.
Check that one off at least.
Check it off. Right on, check it off. And of course, you know what we're going to say?
Can we have more?
More. And so I'm very grateful, and so thank you for letting us know that. And that's what I have to say as far as introduction. So that's enough from me. The following people will speak to the updates and next steps. I would like to introduce Nancy Ariola, who will speak on Civic Engagement Subcommittee work, and Kristen Ross and Katie Larcell, who will speak about economic development.
Dr. Gray, can I just observe, before you give up the chair, that we have a lot of school districts that are in the city of Portland, some bigger than others. During my service on the council dating back to 2008, no superintendent has spent more time in this building educating the city council about the needs of a school district than you have.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying so.
Good afternoon. My name is Natalie Arreola. I'm a member of the Civic Engagement Subcommittee. Some of the strategic priorities that we've been working on and the Civic Engagement Subcommittee has been to engage ethnic communities and neighborhood activities, to provide overhead funding for translation languages, to remove barriers and improve messages and invitations. So some of the work that we've been doing around that has been some of our members, Andrea Govea, Emily Larraga, and Natalia Sobolevskaya, have represented EPAP at the City of Portland Office of Neighborhood Involvement, the ONI Budget Advisory Committees. With their active advocacy, we've been able to have ONI to request funding for translation, interpretation, and childcare as an add-on package in the ONI budget request for fiscal year 2017-2018. We also had Civic Engagement Subcommittee members have also met with the City of Portland Equity and Human Rights Office to advocate for and provide input into development of a program to be provided by the city with overhead funding. And we've also worked with, have had committee members working with the operation committee members as well, and have met with the city, the mayor and with you all to advocate for overhead funding, interpretation, translation, childcare, and transit assistance. Other strategic priority that we've been working with around doing advocacy around has been increasing funding and technical assistance for organizations that desire to establish 2 new ethnicities or languages every 2 years to strengthen an existing ethnically based community health workers programs, and to establish racially and ethnically representatives community oversight of community health worker programming. So EPAP Civic Engagement Subcommittee members have from various racial and ethnic communities have actively supported the expansion of community health workers, from including the expansion of Latino community health workers, African American, Native American, Slavic, Iraqi, Zomi, Myanmar, Burmese, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Tongan. EPAP Civic Engagement Subcommittee has had a series of meetings with Multnomah County Health Department as well. Multnomah County Health Department Capacitation Program, Oregon Community Health Worker Association, Oregon Community Health Worker Research and Education Consortium, and Oregon Public Health Institute. All of the above support the strategic priority have been able to organize together. EPAP Operations Committee members stressed this priority when meeting with Multnomah County Chair Kafori and Commissioner Smith, Stegman, and Vega Peterson. Commissioner Smith requested more information and a specific proposal. The following was provided. In response, in the response to the commissioner's question, which was, what is the fiscal need to expand the community health worker program to address the following EPAP's 2017 strategic priority set by the EPAP Civic Engagement Committee? We said $100,000, provide one FTE in operational costs for ethnic / language specific curriculum development, and 2 culturally specific and language specific 90-hour trainings for 25 people a year. This not only provides for a more inclusive dissemination of health information and service, but the training has a significant potential to lead to accreditation and living wage employments for these trained. The above proposal was also shared with Chair Kafori and Commissioner Stegman and Vega Peterson. The EPAP Civic Engagement Committee encouraged the Oregon Public Health Institute BUILD program to pursue the integration of community health workers in the project and to encourage the integration of community health workers in the practice of their health industries partners. The BUILD project has hired 2 community health workers to support the Powellhurst Gilbert neighborhood-based project. The community health workers that were hired are bilingual with capacity to speak English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So those are communities that were being served now in that area. The next steps for advocacy is that we recommend is to encourage the City Council to provide overhead funding in this year's budget for interpretation, translation, childcare, and bus passes accommodations. In response to the Office of Neighborhood Involvement requests for this funding as a Bureau add-on package, the City Budgeting Office recommends that accommodations be considered part of the outreach engagement costs, and the bureaus should prioritize resource to achieve equitable outcomes. To the degree of the overall outreach and engagement outcomes are not meeting targets, the bureaus should request additional engagement resources. EPAP contends that the should means very little when allocation spending occurs. But if bureaus have a percentage of their budgets allocated through overhead funding, it should incentivize them to take advantage of the resource. EPAP spent about $20,000 of their budget on these items last year, and if it's just put into the overhead funding, it could really keep those programs going and consider serving the community. Our involuntary displacement recommendation is to continue having community involvement in decisions made around displacement as well. Okay, thank you very much.
I'd just like to take a moment to say that we did get that ad package for accommodations.
You got it for ONI, but not overhead
ONI.
funding.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So-
ONI did make, which was wonderful.
So we should be able to help at least, or?
You can be advocating for it
Okay.
being bureau-wide, because ONI certainly can't do all that work for the entire city.
Right, okay.
Okay, and I apologize, Nick Coble is not here, and he was actually replacing Kristen, who moved to Montana. So I'm going to try to step up and talk about economic development. I'm going to just present our progress, and then Katie Larcell will speak to what we need in support. So on your strategic priorities, J is connect East Portland residents to family wage employment. East Portland Action Plan members have worked very actively with the Columbia Corridor and in advocating for north-south connectors to get our community to living wage jobs. Given that we have the highest density of immigrant refugee communities, manufacturing jobs can provide family wage, but there is no way for them to get to those manufacturing jobs and to get there in a timely fashion. So we've been doing a significant portion of advocacy with TriMet and with our partners at PBOT to make it a priority to have these north-south connectors. On 162nd was prioritized, and 148th. And I must say, I honor Division Midway Alliance. Well, 148th would serve their project. They too said 162nd has the more density and is more important to start with. We do appreciate the work that has been done on 122nd, but even that work is not getting people all the way to the Columbia Corridor. The next strategic priority is K, maximize East Portland's economic benefits from public projects. We worked very actively on community benefits agreements with the support of our allies, Metropolitan Alliance for Workforce Equity. We've had success with Portland Parks, 2 of the projects that they're working with. We asked for integration of local hire as well as DBEs, and to see that people from East Portland are benefiting from projects in East Portland, and we're, again, developing living wages in the area. We have also been working with Metro, talking about projects that they're bringing to the area, and we did extensive review of the Community Equity Inclusion Plan by the Office of Equity, and gave written input in track changes and an overall statement on that. Kim Marks will be on the Community Advisory Committee for the Division Bus Rapid Transit Project, and will advocate for local hiring and local business use. So we continue to be advocates in those veins. L is promote Catalyst workforce development projects, and partner with the neighborhood prosperity initiatives and other urban renewal economic development efforts. We have worked the East Portland Action Plan Economic Development Subcommittee has regular attendance from all the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative members. And in fact, one of our co-chairs at this point, Mei Young, is with the Jade District, and Kate is with the Historic Park Rose. So they're co-chairing the committee. EPAP has had representation on the Gateway Discovery Park project, which includes mixed-use income complex with retail on the ground floor. And the contractor is requesting additional tax increment finance funds. NPIs and Main Streets have developed a unified advocacy strategy for elected officials. The strategy is designed to bring sustainability to our organizations, and EPAP has been fully supportive of that, and using system development charge fees in developments in the neighborhood prosperity initiative areas. EPAP has continued to advocate for the need to stop remonstrances and not reassert that. We know that sidewalks, well, you can have transit. If you can't get people to safely walk to that transit, they're not going to use that transit, as well as if it is not frequent. You can't spend 2 hours to get to your job both ways. How can you be an active member of your community, and how can you support your family under those conditions? So there has been in the past, PBOT, Portland Bureau of Transportation, has allowed for remonstrances for new developments, saying, well, we don't want a half a block of sidewalk. Well, what we found is when you're looking at funding from PBOT to infill sidewalks, we've been fairly successful at getting sidewalk infill, which means, yes, that half a block will then mean you're just infilling. But if you suddenly say, no, you have to do all these miles of sidewalks, that gets put off because it is so expensive. So what we're advocating is, no, have all development in East Portland put in the sidewalks that they're required to put in, and then we can face the issues of infill later. So, and then Oregon Solutions is involved with Lentz Job Creation Project linked to the Lentz floodplain, and we have been supportive of that work. M is establish the Gateway Education Economic Development Center, and we did bring Mayor Wheeler to the East Portland Action Plan meeting in December as he spoke of the work that he saw as upstream in terms of economic development. We realized, and Hunksa Changthavan from ERCO spoke to, we have a solution. The Gateway Education Economic Development Center addressed every one of the issues that he raised in what was needed as an upstream action. It was also in the Portland Plan and was to have been implemented within 5 years. And quite honestly, the city, Katie will talk more about it, but the city hasn't stepped up on this. We're excited that the council, as it sits now, might be willing to pursue this more fully. And we do have a committee, and they're going to be seeking, we will continue to talk about this as we have in the past when we meet with you individually and with the mayor. In terms of involuntary displacement, living wage provisions, The JADE advocates for a $15 an hour livable wage and asks local businesses to do the same. EPAP has officially advocated for at least a $13 wage. Local hiring, again, we mentioned the community benefit agreements, the same with minority contracting, commercial stabilization and commercial rent stabilization. Rosewood Initiative is doing an appreciative inquiry and will survey electeds, businesses, and community members to assess what is a useful tool for stabilization. We are seeing and have been seeing for at least 4 years now, many of our ethnic businesses having to leave East Portland. We had a 13-year business in East Portland, and the rents went up, and they had to leave. It was Anush Deli. We are seeing that more and more with our ethnically based businesses, and we think that is egregious, and we want to see forms of stabilization. Let's see, Community Reinvestment Act, we would love the city's support to actively pursue that those dollars that hospitals have and banks have be applied locally to East Portland where the need is the greatest. We are working with Metro on transit-oriented development, and I will now pass to Katie.
May I just ask a quick question or two? On the remonstrances for sidewalks, is that everywhere or only on the arterials? Because we adopted something last year that said that if you were in a not in a problem street, that you could pay fee in lieu so that the sidewalks would get done on the arterials.
And that is what, and we're saying people living on that even local street, if you're developing something, they have to walk down that local street to get to the arterial. And the idea that the money is being saved to then be used on the arterials has never manifested.
Well, we
when they
just
did
asked-
remonstrances, but they did remonstrances before you voted on that for years.
Yes, I know. It's the same thing in Southwest.
And they just never manifested in an actuality.
I think we've only just started that program, though, so I think that's worth some more conversation. And then secondly, about community benefits agreements. There was some concerns I've heard about a preference for union jobs, and that might be in conflict with small businesses in East Portland who might not be unionized because they're family businesses.
And in terms of the community benefits agreements, because they're with municipal projects, again, it's a matter of saying it will be a living wage, as opposed to having a plan that says, well, we'll look at hiring locally, and then local hires getting paid the minimum wage, which will not support their families, where the agreement stipulates you will pay. And the unions are willing to work with communities. And then, of course, the purchasing aspect of that you're going to purchase locally. If there are companies in East Portland that can provide that, again, that provides those small businesses with significant income.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying.
May I just add a comment too, and thank you, Laura. Two things. One is I appreciate you calling out the Columbia Corridor, and I appreciate you calling out all the jobs along the harbor. I think we would welcome a representative from EPAP on the Superfund Community Outreach Task Force, because that's $1 billion coming through our community. It'll be the largest environmental, regulatory, and potentially employment project. Think of it as a stimulus. And just like East Portland often works in the harbor, as part of the working harbor, let's try to capture as many of those jobs. So I'll follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
And the other thing, to the point of the conversation you just had with my colleague, I just want to acknowledge that there is some conversation that's percolating about how to bring down the cost of affordable housing. And 3 ideas have been floated. One is going backwards on opportunity, so not building in places that have existing infrastructure and opportunities, which would be, I think, a disaster. Number 2, backing off of our sustainability values, so not making building green. But number 3, and the one where you potentially have the greatest savings at the greatest cost, is backing off family wage jobs. So if we seek to build affordable housing for low-income families, but we don't pay the workers a living wage, that's a problem. So keep your eye on that, because those are 3 ideas that when you hear about bringing down the cost of affordable housing, here's a little secret. It won't happen by just reducing the time that you spend permitting the project.
Exactly.
The savings come in changing existing policies, and those are the 3 policies which at least have been raised by some.
Yes, and what I would say is, as Karen mentioned earlier, the living wage provision and such support came after review from our housing committee, saying, no, we need to have community benefits that pay living wage because it's intersectional. It must all happen. You have to provide wages for people to sustain living and support their families, and then to move into other housing and make that affordable housing affordable for the next family. So we're in agreement.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Katie Larcell, as some of you know, and I'm also on the Planning and Sustainability Commission, but I kind of cut my teeth on East Portland Action Plan, and I attend the Economic Development Subcommittee so that it will inform my work on the Planning and Sustainability Commission. And what I'm going to be doing is talking about what we're asking of you in terms of the items that the Economic Development Committee is working on. Then we need you to work on some of them too. And in terms of the J, connect East Portland residents to family wage employment by removing barriers. Well, we encourage the use of transportation demand management funds and City of Portland partnership influence and transportation investment to secure frequent north-south transit service that connects Columbia Corridor family wage jobs, shift jobs, to the people who want to fill those jobs. And the promised service on 122nd has not yet been fully established on Columbia Corridor, and buses are needed on 162nd and on 148th. Now, our K priority, maximize East Portland's economic benefits from public projects. We encourage the establishment of community benefit agreements, and you've been asking questions about that. We want that on all City of Portland projects of $1 million or more, and these agreements would include local hire and purchase agreements when being built in East Portland, and citywide should prioritize areas of the city most employment and income deficit. And for L priority, promote Catalyst workforce development projects in East Portland in partnership with East Portland Neighborhood Prosperity Networks, urban renewal districts, and economic development efforts. Gateway is a 2040 regional center, but it is still undeveloped. Small manufacturing is an appropriate living wage response to the needs of East Portland residents, and city staff need to think first of East Portland when recruiting businesses to this city. Also, the city should continue, well, as we just talked about the remonstrance, and it sounds like there's some conversation that needs to happen on that, so I won't repeat that one. And then for the M goal, establish the Gateway Education Economic Development Center. Now, I was really going to be looking directly at Ted Wheeler when I talked about this one, and I want to say
I think he knew that, so he flew to California. So.
And so I was thinking that since he's not here, do you guys have that policy in some committees where when the person is gone, everybody else assigns them that role? Anyway, if that's the case, then I'd like you to put your heads together and do that. So we ask that the city take a convening role in building the partnerships that will establish this much-needed integration of a first floor, multicultural, entrepreneurial incubator opportunity, 9 through 12 public education training in the health industry, manufacturing, and possibly construction, evening adult workforce training, affordable housing, and City of Portland Bureau relocation or office space to help fund the whole thing. This is the vision of the center. And this project is in the Portland Plan, and as a member of the Planning and Sustainability Commission, I just got an update of that plan. And on page after page, there's the progress of these different projects that the Portland Plan committed the city to. And there's a big red goose egg on this one. And the red goose egg means absolutely nothing has occurred on this project. And
Oh,
that's
to
a
be fair, we
big
tried, but
shame.
it didn't come to fruition. I agree. that,
Yeah.
You know, and just because we weren't successful with moving the Parks Bureau, I agree that we still need to be looking at it, particularly when the whole Gateway Transit area is redeveloped.
And I'm so pleased that you said that, Amanda, because that is, because it's a project that's been around for a long time, but it is still very much alive.
Well, just wait till the Discovery Park is done, because I think that's going to be the catalyst, because people are going to want to go there, and then, oh, is that lot available? I hope that's going to happen.
Yes. So Metro Planning and Development Grant Program funds could be sought to develop this concept. It is perfect for STEAM funding and Community Reinvestment Act funding. School districts and community partners remain supportive of the effort. It would change many lives if that was in place, and it would change Gateway. So that's the one that's really close to my heart. The next item that I want to speak about is N, which is commercial stabilization and commercial rent stabilization, which Laura mentioned. East Portland has been losing our small race, ethnic, and cultural specific businesses due to rent and just higher prices. We need the support of the city to assess and establish useful tools to support stabilization. EPAP has suggested that Venture Portland expand to include not just geographic, but business association members, but much like the diversity and civic leadership partners, to include race, ethnic, and cultural specific business association members. Sounds like a good idea. So we're done here for economic development. And now I'd like to introduce three powerful women, Frida Christopher, Linda Robinson, and Arlene Kimura. And Frida will be talking about housing. Linda, parks, surprise, surprise, and Arlene Kimura, transportation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've never heard us called three powerful women before. Commissioners, thank you for having us here today. My name's Frida Christopher, and I'm co-chair of the East Portland Action Plan Housing Subcommittee, as well as serving on the David Douglas School Board. First, I would like to thank you for your focus on affordable housing and homelessness issues and your advocacy at the state level in the support of affordable housing and the tools for anti-displacement and tenant rights. The Housing Subcommittee has been very busy over the last year. We have met with city, county, metro, and state elected officials to advocate for adequate affordable housing and for anti-displacement tools such as lifting the ban on rent control and the elimination of no-cause evictions, which will help stabilize the housing for East Portland residents and also balance the affordable and accessible housing supply throughout Portland. We also have joined with the Partners of Affordable Home Ownership to advocate for funding for expanding home ownership for moderate and low-income and people of color. When it comes to anti-displacement tools, we did advocate and support the inclusionary zoning program here at the city. We are currently advocating at the state level. In fact, just sent off a letter yesterday to the Senate committee for the rent control and no-cause eviction tenants' rights. One of our strategic priorities for the past 2 years has been the pilot project for the rehabilitation program in East Portland, in which $1.5 million was proposed in the last 2 years of the housing budget. The committee's advocacy for this program was because we were seeing the housing crisis impacting East Portland. East Portland has a significant amount of privately owned affordable housing, or should I say we did have a significant amount. Rents are constantly going up. We felt that in the short term, with this program, we could increase the amount of regulated affordable housing for 10 years while efforts were made to construct additional affordable multifamily units. Unfortunately, in 2016 mayor's budget, it was reduced to less than $500,000. The slow implementation of this program has been part of the issue, but we are disappointed that as we get ready to support the program when it's presented for council's approval, again in the 2017 budget, a significant cut has been made. In fact, it appears that the full funding of $1.5 million has been redirected to other programs. As mentioned, Nick Sovey, a member of the Housing Committee, has mapped how each of the larger bureaus have spent their funds each year since 2012, and how much has been directed to East Portland when compared with the city average. Unfortunately, whereas Parks and Transportation has had significant increased investment in East Portland to reach equity since 2013, the Housing Bureau has declined its investment in East Portland. For the 2016 fiscal year, it had fallen to 49% of the city average from a high of 91% around 2013. The proposed rehabilitation program funding was a step to change the disinvestment in East Portland by the Housing Bureau. We understand the competing demands on the city budget and within the Housing Bureau, the competing programs and hard decisions that need to be made. We just request that when making these hard decisions, that equity for East Portland is part of the decision-making process. Funding in East Portland has been neglected for decades, and now that 26% of the population is living in East Portland, the City Council can no longer ignore the needs that are there with the large portion of the residents being vulnerable. We continue to want to work collaboratively with the Housing Bureau and the city. We also want to stress that East Portland is starting to gentrify, and we want to make sure investments are made in East Portland so displacement can be mitigated. It will be less costly to be proactive in providing long-term affordable housing now than to try to buy back as what is being done in North and Northeast Portland. I would be negligent as a school board member if I didn't mention one of the most important factors of stabilizing housing. Research has proven that stable housing is an important factor for children's success in school. They are more likely to reach benchmark in reading by 3rd grade, and thus more likely to graduate on time. If we don't stop displacement in East Portland now, the next move for our residents is out of our city. As a housing committee, we will continue to advocate for equitable funding for additional affordable housing with a focus on ongoing funds, one-time funds, and we will be asking for 26% of the housing bond funds to be spent in East Portland, equal to what the population percentage is. As a committee, we will also continue to work with the city and other local jurisdictions to advocate for legislative changes to make it possible for our local entities to have the anti-displacement tools they need to handle this housing crisis. Again, thank you for your time and your support on these important housing issues.
Good afternoon. First, my name's Linda Robinson. I'm with the East Portland Parks Coalition and a number of other things. Anyway, so I wanted to start by saying what a pleasure it has been for me to work with the East Portland Action Plan. As most of you know, I've been involved with civic engagement, public involvement for maybe 30 years or so, and this is probably, working with these folks has been the most productive, most satisfying of all those public engagement that I've been involved in. We're learning in East Portland how to do something more than just complain that nobody ever gives us anything. We're learning how to be proactive. We're learning how to represent our area on commissions and committees and come in and testify. So it's really rewarding to be here with this group of people. So I represent Parks. I'm a Parks representative on the EPAP. It's not an EPAP committee because it existed before EPAP existed. Amanda helped us form it before she was elected. So that group has existed for 15 years. We picked two strategic priorities to focus on this past year. One was to implement the existing park master plans. And of course, one is under construction and nearly finished now. That's which was called the beach property, now Lewitt View. We thank Amanda and the Parks Bureau for providing some SDC funds of $6 million so we could get started on the master plan for Park Lane. That work will get underway very soon, and we're excited about that. We're still waiting and still advocating for funds eventually for Clatsop Butte as well. So that's the first one. The second strategic priority was to complete the design and planning work for Gateway Green Park, which is a subject dear to my heart, and I wore my Gateway Green shirt especially for today. But we appreciate that's a project that's been in the works for more than a decade. We are pleased to say that Friends of Gateway Green, we were awarded a Metro Capital grant 3 years ago with a provision that we had to raise $2 million of match in order to get the $1 million of Metro grant. We didn't quite make our $2 million, but again, Parks stepped up and made up the difference and gave us some more so that now we have enough to actually build the whole park. Construction started last October. The initial work is actually being done by Friends of Gateway Green through a non-park use permit. We've hired nationally known trail builders. Some bike trails are being built, bike jumps, pump tracks, bicycle skills area. These are under construction now, and they will be finished in just a few weeks. And I want to invite all of you to our big opening event when the gates will be unlocked on June 24th. We have an event from 11 to 4 on that day, and it's going to have a lot of bicycle-oriented things because that's the part that's finished now, but we're going to have a lot of non-bicycle, family-friendly things going on that day as well. So the Friends of Gateway Green, we raised cash and in-kind of over $1 million, but we are actually spending on the construction of this part of the park. We have spent about $180,000 now. It'll be about $230,000 spent by the time we open on June 24th.
What time of the day was that?
Pardon?
What time is the grand opening?
The grand opening is from 11 to 4, and we're going to have a ceremony at 1:30 that day.
Sit down.
Okay, and construction is moving forward. We're really excited about opening. The park will actually be constructed over a period of 4 years. Once we finish this part, we're using the crowdfunding money and several grants that FOG got from foundations to build the bicycle part. Starting in July, construction gets turned over to Parks, and they will construct the rest of it. So the final drawings and plans are underway right now. We thank you for assigning Ross Swanson as the project manager. He's been wonderful to work with. And having been at PBOT, he's also able to work with the other bureaus quite well. That's working out quite well for us. In terms of what we need, well, next we need to continue advocating to get money to implement the other master plans that are in existence. And the other thing we need for Gateway Green is the continued support, with a park bureau, but also we're still working on some access issues that have really cost us a lot of money in this early part of the construction because we don't have very good access to bring in large construction vehicles, and we have to pay railroad flaggers every time we want to bring something in at like $800 to $1,000 a day. So we have some plans. It's been funded to bring in the T-Hop and the under 205 crossing, which will help. But there's also the bridge on the north end that's built by ODOT and controlled by the railroad. But we have plans to put a new ramp off of that will not take us into the railroad right-of-way. So we really need help to get that access point. And when it's done, it also will help connect the I-205 to trails that go north as well. So PBOT is interested, ODOT is also interested. So we need to have a joint project to try to get that access point resolved.
So on parks this year, if I could just give you some more things to think about and do. We at your request, EPAP's request, we did allocate money to Leach Botanical Garden for building out their master garden.
That's right. I should have, but that wasn't one of our strategic priorities.
No, and I knew it wasn't. So when I was asked to give the SDC money, I did, I the fact that EPAP did say that, yes, we're
Right.
supporting this,
I mean, it is one of the items on our plan, but we didn't know that we might be able to get money
I
this
know.
year.
Well, but just to think about, you mentioned Clatsop Butte, which we've got the master plan, it's not done yet. As you know, we're doing 3 master plans, well, 4 really.
Yes.
Currently with the 150th and Division, Mill Parks, Midland Park and Wilkes. So as these master plans get done, I will be looking to EPAP and the Parks Committee to, is Clatsop Butte still your first choice, or because it's been in line, or are some of these others of more urgency? So just, be thinking about that, please.
And that's a discussion that it's an ongoing discussion with East Portland Parks Coalition, and we try to make sure everybody's aware that, we need as a group to talk about and decide kind of how these priorities will go.
And sometimes it's due to opportunities. That
Yes.
the Friends of Leach
Right.
Garden were willing to do a lot of fundraising. So, and as you said, you mentioned the $1 million from Metro.
Right.
There's no way I'm leaving $1 million
Right.
on the
I
table.
mean, we didn't
so,
want to.
yeah.
We didn't want to not get the $1 million
Exactly.
from Metro.
Thank you very
Linda,
much.
can I just add that it's your nature to deflect and to thank everyone else for the work that you've been instrumental to do. But the truth is, had you and Ted Gilbert not birthed the idea and stuck with it, we would not be celebrating these wins around Gateway Green. So thank you for your work.
And it actually came out of the Gateway Urban Renewal process. I mean, that's how the discussion of what can we do started, and eventually, well, gee, maybe we could have a
It
park.
still would not have gotten to first base without you and your tenacious leadership.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors, commissioners. I get to do the transportation update. My name is Arlene Kimura, and I live in East Portland, and I'm one of the transportation walks that populate that part of town. The EPAP transportation strategic priorities include fully funding the East Portland in Motion. We have many projects in process and others in the planning stage. We have some ways to go on implementing the complete Outer Powell concept design, but we are making progress. With a focus on Vision Zero, the red light cameras, and the installation of more rapid flashing beacons, as well as works on the bikeway, there has been progress on alternative transportation safety for community members. All of this has been with the efforts of PBOT staff, and we thank them for the very cooperative spirit that they have shown us. Sometimes it takes a little bit of nudging, but they are really very helpful when pushed. And I want to make sure that we thank the staff for doing that kind of work. At the same time, we are still working on the MOU for the locally preferred alternate for the Division Street high-capacity transit. There are issues for all of our East Portland partners that need resolution for a more holistic approach. In addition, we are beginning work on the proposal of the possible TriMet bond on the Southwest Corridor Light Rail to include addressing the orphan highways of East Portland, the north-south transit in East Portland, and the housing displacement in East Portland. Next, I would like to reintroduce to you the idea of EPAP's municipal partnership process. The partnership model has been a tremendous success with community members and municipal agencies working together to execute a very specific program with funding from EPAP. The following speakers will be talking about how a municipal partnership has worked for their organization. Sergeant Dave Abramson from Portland Police Bureau, Kelly Devlin and Linda Vansel, and a student from the David Douglas High School District on interpreter training. Thank you. Yeah, I did.
Absolutely, please, feel
All
free.
right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kelly Devlin. I'm the Director of ESL and English as a Second Language in the David Douglas School District. We are so grateful for the opportunity to share with you the goals and objectives of our Student Interpreters Training class at David Douglas High School. Since October, we have been piloting this project. Our interpreting class meets after school twice a week.
Our class is open to high school students who have demonstrated strong language proficiency skills in both their native language and English. This pilot project is dependent on a strong partnership with support from both EPAP and Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities has been our side-by-side partner in planning the logistics and providing the instructors for our after-school class. One of our instructors, Selena Hoy, is in the audience with us today supporting us. Our goals and objectives for this project this year was, 1, to establish an opportunity to highlight our students' native language skills as an asset. In David Douglas, we are striving to create a culture where students' bilingual skills are appreciated, valued, and treasured. The second one is to provide our students with the opportunity to explore a potential pathway into our community workforce. And 3, to teach and expose our students to the beginning features and techniques that professional interpreters use. Our hopes in year 1 were very simple. 1, we wanted to know if students were interested in taking the class. 2, we wanted students to have an opportunity to work with community partners and experts, and we were able to do that. And 3, we wanted our students to have informal opportunities to practice these skills by serving as student bilingual ambassadors in our schools. Our hopes, we're starting to brainstorm and imagine, and like anything, it's a clean slate, so we start thinking about all the things that we can do at our high school. So some of the things are, would we be able to turn this after-school class into a school day class? How would we do that? We want to be able to have a certified staff member, possibly take some CTE certification and interpreting training so that we could offer it during the school day. And that way, our second language students have more accessibility to achieving some CTE credit for graduation. We are trying to make sure that they stay connected to people in the community and in the field. And 2, we are looking to figure out what kinds of other supports this class might need. So we're exploring some of these classes in other regions. There's one in particular that we are studying in Seattle, where they have been very successful and have received some national publication exposure. I'd like to introduce Kan Lee, who is a senior at David Douglas High School. She is one of our members of our interpreting class. She joined our David Douglas family as a freshman, and now she's a senior, just several weeks away from graduating, but she's joining us today to share a little bit on the student perspective of the class.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. My name is Kan Lee. I am a current member of the interpreting class, and I am really grateful for the opportunity to participate to the class, because as a student who has a international background like me, I have been doing interpreting for my family and for my friends and community. At first, I didn't know that to be a trained interpreter is this hard. Because I always confident about my interpreting skills before taking the class, but I didn't know that I have to be very professional and have to know more and the skills to be able to interpret for the community and for my family also. Before taking the class, I had a misconception that people who speak 2 languages or more are able to interpret already. But actually, when I told myself to a video and then I tried to do simultaneous interpreting for my mom, and that was hard and difficult to be able to interpret and to follow the flow, the voice of the people. As a student, I think I really like the idea to put the class into regular school, because most students can only stay in the school instead of after school, and it is kind of really inconvenient for the students. As a person who have been using interpreters for family and for both medical appointments or legal appointment, I have seen a lot of interpreters who are both professional or not really professional. So I think that it is a good opportunity for the young generation can study more about this field. And this class is important not only for students who are bilingual, but also for the other students, because in the future they may have seen and communicate and work with people who need to use interpreter for communicating. So it is a good experience for many people. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. I agree. I've always wondered how people who do the simultaneous translation can do it. It's such a skill. I'm wondering, what are you going to do after you graduate from high school?
I will be going to Portland State University to study accounting while developing my interpreting skill, because I also need the skill to help the community.
Fabulous. I'm glad to hear you're staying in Portland. Well done.
Thank you.
I appreciate hearing about this program. I served on the District Parent Involvement Committee several years ago, and a big focus of ours was outreach to families for whom English was not their native language. And as we know, we struggle to serve those students and to include their families. And I always found it really perplexing because we have these foreign language immersion schools, which are wildly successful, and I just couldn't understand why we couldn't kind of just reverse that or utilize the resources. So I love that you called that a resource, because it really is, and what a great way to tap into it.
Council, hi, I'm David Abrahamson. I'm a sergeant at Traffic Division. I oversee the crash team. Let's see if we can get this up there where people can see it. Approximately 2.5, 3 years ago, we started to see a significant increase of crashes out in East Portland, where the non-English speaking community and new immigrants were overrepresented. And through doing some inquiry and investigation, we soon found out that there's absolutely no driver training available besides English available to anybody. If you're under 18, Oregon Subsidy will qualify for you, but classes are in English. As far as material, there is not any driver education manual in print besides English and besides Spanish. So immigrants are coming in with their own context from their own cultures, the majority of them not driving. I think 95% of our students through this program of the women have never even sat in the driver's seat of a vehicle before. But again, we saw that the underserved communities here have also been overrepresented in the last 3 years to 6 years in our fatal crashes. We've seen that increase significantly. Approximately 15% of all our hit and run suspects in Portland are new immigrant refugees and new Portlanders. That's what IRNP stand for. In Multnomah County, in 2013, that just gives you a snapshot, over 8,100 requests for interpreter services were here at Multnomah County at the courthouse. The majority of those are for traffic-related offenses. And this is from the OJD, the 2012 U.S. Census, 14 to 24% in Portland Metro actively speak a foreign language on a daily basis in their home. And at that time, as of 17% were foreign-born. That's gone up to nearly 20% now. Nearly a quarter of our, 20% of our populace is foreign-born.
So then the 15% is about what you would expect on the previous slide.
That's just from, and again, Oregon, without getting a lot of details, Oregon Crash Report, you cannot track or trap ethnicity. So this is what we're seeing as far as hit and run suspects. As far as victims, we're seeing an overpopulation of that. About 30% of victims are not equipped to safely operate or maneuver, whether it's driving a vehicle or if it's a vulnerable road user on a bike or pedestrian. So about 30% victims. And again, due to transportation needs, it's not feasible a lot of times for immigrants coming in to use mass transit to seek their occupations and livelihood. So we approached East Portland Action Plan, and again, I cannot say enough. In the last 2 years of obtaining grants, both years, I have been so impressed. I grew up there in East County at David Douglas. I lived there in East County until 2 years ago, and to see the proactive investment of the community, I have been impressed. I truly have been. So EPAP graciously granted us with funds for the first class last year, and we had about 170 students last year from 24 different countries, 23 languages, come in and receive hands-on driver education training, 2 full days of hands-on driver education at our training facility, and 2 full days of classroom training with Portland police officers from the Traffic Division, from Oregon Driver Education Center, driving instructors, from Oregon Impact with impairment panels. We brought in Oregon Department of Transportation, also Portland Bureau of Transportation. Sharon White has been exceptional to work with. So we've tried to leverage resources, and also here in our minority communities, Laura Wintergreen has introduced me probably to 20 different heads of communities that I've had the privilege to meet with. And we've drawn them in and built relationships, and this has been phenomenal. This really has been a process where we have 7 different rotations of hands-on driver training. It takes place, again, at the training facility on 10 acres. Oregon Driver Education Center brings in 10 instructors each weekend. We get to partake in that to really break down the pretense of the uniform. And they are taught how to park, how to, every single kind of concept you can think of in driver education as far as keeping their eyes up, the fundamentals, vision, the concepts. And to see them come in nervous and to walk away empowered has been such a gift. At least 80% of all of our students are women. If you talk about equipping the public and you're talking about being a sanctuary city and providing equity across the board, this has been an amazing opportunity investment.
Was that just because more women applied?
No.
Or was there a special outreach effort?
Well, obviously in different cultures, it's not the norm for them to even have that privilege to drive. And even from this program, we found out there's a lot of other resources we've been able to introduce where domestic violence actually increases when they come here. If they're a victim overseas, the abuse increases here. So for them to learn skills to be able to drive is also needed for them and their families. Again, this has broken down barriers between the police and the community. We have about 70 students every month that go through this program. The need is huge. We have about 8,000 students over the age of 18 that attend ESL programs either at PCC in East County or Mount Hood Community College. And the demand is overwhelming right now. We truly need to have permanent funding for this course or it'll die on the vine. This is our second and last year to be provided funding. We also, from this last year, qualified for a micro grant through the City of Portland. We've used that to leverage other resources. We have 19 languages that Portland police officers speak. We've translated into 7 languages, our diversion classes into 7 languages now. We are working with Portland State's flagship program through the Russian department to translate the DMV manual because we have 180,000 Russian-speaking citizens here within the Portland metropolitan area. So we're using funds and resources and these relationships that that have been created through this program to really try to advocate on the behalf of those that are underserved.
How much does it cost per year?
It costs, frankly, to do this right now, we've been seeking out grants and have been putting the bandages together about $55,000 to $70,000 if we're going to put on 3 to 4 classes a year. But the demand is huge. It just is. And I mean, I can get into further discussion that we've had with Oregon Department of Transportation and Department of Motor Vehicles outside this venue some other time. But the need is there. And I believe that it will fall on our shoulders. So the hope from
You are
this...
getting some funding from the East Portland Action Grants? Or
We have, however, and I'll get into that, permanent funding really needs to come from the city. It needs to be earmarked every single year outside East Portland Action Plan. We used some of the funds from the micro grant to actually broaden the scope outside the East community this last year. And we probably have 1,000 students that want to take this class right now. We just don't have resources. So again, our hope is that a ripple effect will occur within these communities, that the training that takes place at these classes, that it will be taken back to their families and the communities, and that they'll be equipped to safely operate on our roadway system. With that said, I would ask one last thing. Again, as a sanctuary city, I would ask that permanent funding be allotted and slated for this program. It is needed. I can provide you currently with a list of immigrants within the last 5 years who have died in fatal crashes here on our Portland streets, and the majority in East Portland. These victims no longer have a voice. I'm asking you to specifically speak on their behalf and on their community's behalf and provide funding for this so they can be equipped. Lastly, without providing funding for this and equitable resources to the underserved communities, how can we expect to realistically obtain and embrace Vision Zero objectives here in our community? To educate, to empower, to equip, to break down barriers of police, to reduce significant crashes, and ultimately save lives. Without this being funded, I don't see how we obtain that. And again, I want to thank East Portland Action Plan. Thank each of you. It's been a privilege. Thanks. And lastly, I would like to invite each of you to this May class. Come see what we're doing, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, Sergeant, have you ever talked with the Vision Zero implementation team about funding this through Vision Zero funding? Or
Funding was not available when we started this. Even before I went over to the crash team 3 years ago when I was a sergeant at East, and I saw the increase in crashes, I went to ODOT and applied for a grant. There was no funding. It wasn't until I went to the crash team, engaged in relationships, and was pointed in the direction of Laura Wintergreen that I even obtained funding, and funding is obtained outside of government, frankly.
Okay.
This is an interesting topic.
Yeah, I will pledge to take a look at this and see if we can fund it through our Vision Zero implementation monies.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Commissioners, it's my honor to introduce the next two members of our EPAP team, Joanne Hardesty and Dale Bastola.
Good afternoon. For the record, I am Joanne Hardesty, and I have the pleasure of serving as the co-chair of the Grant Committee for East Portland Action Plan. I am here to discuss with you the Grants Committee and the process that the Grant Committee uses to make its funding decisions. Before I go there, I just want to say first, reiterate why the East Portland Action Plan even exists. It exists because those of us who live east of 82nd got tired of not being considered when the city was making budget decisions. And we as a community, we've got community members, we've got government, we've got nonprofits, all coming together monthly to talk collectively about how we can improve the lives of community members who live in East Portland. I know Commissioner Fritz has visited us a few times. Others have come once or twice. We meet every month, and all of you are invited because what you see is democracy at work. What you see are community members who didn't wait for government to come in and start fixing the problems that we had. What you see is a community that came together and collectively developed a shared governance structure, and with support of Mayor Sam Adams and Commissioner Amanda Fritz since then the entire City Council, what you see are dedicated community members who are willing to volunteer their time to make the community better. And so, let me tell you about the Grants Committee. The Grants Committee is made up of volunteers who are not applying for grant money, who come together and read anywhere between 25 and 50 proposals each grant cycle, and then we score them. And then as a committee, we come together and we decide what our priorities are based on the priority list that we have already agreed to as the EPAP committee. And then we prioritize what we're going to fund, and then we have to debate. Because as you can imagine, with 12 people making a decision about funding, there are 12 different opinions about what we should fund with limited funding. And so we appreciate the fact that the city has allowed us to use a participatory budgeting model to actually prioritize the desires of the community in East Portland. And so the East Portland, so for example, we used to have 2 grant cycles. We had a civic engagement grant, and then we had a general grant. The civic engagement grant was very specifically around culturally specific programming to ensure that we were engaging people who either English isn't their first language or there are other barriers to them engaging with their government. These are not multicultural projects. These are projects that are culturally specific to specific communities. In addition, they are either racially or ethnically specific, which means language interpretation and other resources are used to support the civic engagement grants. And I have the privilege of sitting here with one of our 2016 grant recipients that will tell you a bit about that project. Then I will come back and tell you what grants we are proposing to fund for 2017.
All right, thanks, John, Annie. So, hi, my name is Deo. I'm from the Bhutanese Community Organization. And so we are running the ESL and citizenship class every Sunday in the Midway Alliance at Division Street. And so in the beginning, we have 32 students, and out of 32 students, we have 2 students still they are sitting in the back right now holding the sign. So even I use the sign language for them, and so they are able to hold their U.S. citizenship. So out of 32 students, only 19 students so far, they got a citizenship because of ESL. So in the beginning, we divided the classes between 2 groups, A+ and B. The A+ means those who are able to make a few sentences or few words, for example, like a cat, dog, bag, etc. But the B groups, they are not able to know what is uppercase and lowercase. So we struggle really, really hard for them to knowing which one is uppercase and the lowercase. We have students between the ages from 27 to 80 years old. And so 80 years old is my dad, who be a U.S. citizen 3 months ago. Right now, he's sitting in the back. Yes. And so he is really, really proud to be the U.S. citizen because of ESL. So he is not only the one, there are some other students who are the ages of 74, 72, and 68. They already be the U.S. citizens because of ESL. So we are running the class every Sunday for 2 hours. The first 1 hour is for ESL and the second hour is for citizenship. So in the beginning, it's very, very hard for me and our teachers and everybody else. We have to hold their hands, the support in the elbow, and to write their alphabet. It's very hard. The hands are sick because of age factors or because some nerve problems. So even then, we are finally succeed to get a U.S. citizenship for 19 students out of 32. Still, we are working with that one because we want get to reach our 100%. Still, we are working with that one. So ESL is really, really important for all the immigrants, not only for the Bhutanese community, not only for the Korean community, not only for the Burmese community. The immigration is really, really, our citizen ESL is important for all the immigration in the worldwide. So English is our second language. We have a barrier, we have a conflict whenever we stop in the store, whenever we stop in the school or office or in the medical field or in the medical appointments. So we have a translators. So I'm doing that job too side by side as a translator since from a couple of years ago after I complete my CNA. And so, but I guess without ESL, there's no life for all the immigrants. So starting point is the ESL, and so after ESL, they are able to get a citizens. So citizen is really important for all the immigration because I'm a refugee. We all are refugees from those who are immigrants. So I've been here for US in 9 years. So I got a US citizen already like 3 years back. But before that one, I can find a better job. They asked me that, are you a US citizen or not? I said, no. So it takes me a while too. I have to wait for my time to get a US citizen. So after I be a US citizen, I hold a nursing license too. And I have a better job now. And I feel that ESL and the citizenship is really important for all the immigrants. It helps with respect, be politeness, honest, faithful. So we want our budget to be continued for the next year to run ESL and the citizenship. So I would like to pass to Joe Annie.
Thank you.
Well Thank you. That's a fabulous presentation. I just have to note one of the signs there that says, now I have because of ESL, now I have a job and I paid taxes.
Yes.
Because I remember the first year that I was employed here and I paid taxes, it was such a thrill to fill out the form.
So those, all the signs, they wrote by themselves.
They're
because
fabulous.
in the beginning, they don't know what is the alphabet.
Right.
So we teach them. So some of them, they know how to make a couple of words. Right. So that's why we divided 2 classes. Yeah. So that's all their job. That's
fabulous.
not mine.
Thank you so much. Can I add one thing, and thank you both for your testimony.
Sure, please.
Joanne Hardesty brought us back to the history, and it's important we go back to our history. And I want to acknowledge a few other people that I think deserve to be recognized. One is Vice President Senator Jeff Merkley, because it was in fact Senator Merkley, then I believe House Speaker Merkley, who was part of the convening committee along with Tom Potter, who was a mayor who walked the talk on this. So I want to acknowledge Mayor Potter and Jeff Merkley, who lives in East Portland. I also want to acknowledge that it was one of the proudest votes that Dan and Amanda and I have cast was the establishment of EPAP in 2009. And then thanks to the advocacy of the people in this room, our ability to convert the funding to ongoing funding. And that's important history. And also, I'll beat Amanda to the punch, Commissioner Leonard was very passionate about this enterprise and fought for it while he served. So there were a lot of folks, particularly from East Portland, and including people here and neighbors who fought for this. It has stable funding, and we hear you loud and clear about the fact that you've changed the debate is evidence today because you're here positively advocating for changes to the budget and changes to the policy. And I'm old enough to remember, Linda, when the conversation was not that way. It's created a structure and a framework for us as colleagues and as neighbors and friends to have these discussions, and I am extremely grateful for this process. So thank you.
Madam President, I have to excuse myself. I have the fire chief waiting to meet with me, so I just want to say it's been a great report, fully supportive of the grants and everything you're doing, so good work.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Madam President, it's so wonderful to say that, Madam President. And Commissioner Fish, I just want to say thank you for the remembrance of that history. We see ourselves as partners, so we don't see ourselves as weaklings coming to City Hall begging for crumbs. We see ourselves as powerful community members who know what our community needs, and we're coming here to say, okay, time for you to step up. So thank you for that.
That's a really important point, because a lot of the journalists still want to write about, oh, poor East Portland who never gets it to the table.
Right.
And I always tell them, go to visit the East Portland Action Plan and look at what they've accomplished.
I would encourage anyone who really wants to know how to engage the community to come to an EPAP meeting, because you will notice several things happen at every EPAP meeting. Food is served, childcare is provided, translation is provided, and every voice is heard. It's a great model for anyone who wants to do governance.
You know, and as valuable as it is for us to go to those meetings, what I have been impressed with is the ability of people in this room to come to City Hall and lobby city commissioners around the things they care about. And many of the wins that are being documented today are a result of that advocacy and, frankly, relationships that have been built through this process.
Yes.
And I think that's a powerful lesson.
Thank you. And so I have only a couple of more things to say. So I told you about the civic engagement grant. I told you we used to have a general grant. But the EPAP members decided last year that we would combine our grants. Because we were killing our staff person who was making lots of copies, preparing us to be able to conduct these 2 grants once every 6 months. And what I think is remarkable is as a committee, to every person, we voted not only would we combine the grants into one, but we would prioritize making sure that civic engagement, engaging communities that English isn't their first language, New Portlanders, immigrants, refugees, people of color, that we would prioritize them in our 1 grant cycle per year. We were very clear. We wanted to make sure that everyone around the table understood what we were prioritizing, and I am pleased to say that we had unanimous support for making this change. It shows the quality of the people we're working with in East Portland. And so I don't want to take too much more time, but I do want to let you know what grants we are asking you to affirm this year for the 2017 civic engagement. Someone mentioned earlier that every grant is leveraged. It is either leveraged with people power or is leveraged with additional financial resources. And so I will quickly go through this list. It is Exhibit A in your packet. And as you can see, we are recommending funding for East African Literacy and Education Project. We will be funding them at $9,450, and they were able to leverage an additional $5,766. Weatherization-led prevention workshop for Russian-speaking communities. They will be funded at $7,623, and we're able to leverage another $15,500. We are Slavic people. It is our culture. They were funded at $13,828 and are able to leverage an additional $70,500. New Americans Initiative, East Portland, they will receive $6,000, and we're able to double that to $12,050. Needs assessment of underserved older adults. They asked for $5,720 of funding, and we're able to leverage another $2,500 to make that project happen this year. In addition, healthy families saludable. I can't say that. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so help me, people. Will be funded at $14,000, and they were able to leverage an additional $40,400. Peer Court and Family Empowerment Project will be awarded $12,535, and we're able to leverage an additional $19,485. And last but certainly not least, Jim Pepperfest, the 5th annual Jim Pepperfest Native Arts Festival was funded at $4,840, and we're able to leverage an additional $26,620. That is our list of recommended grants for our civic engagement for 2017. Impressive list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? And yes. We have more speakers coming. Sorry. I was just so thrilled. Let me see what you have there. I lost mine.
Laura,
Okay.
can I just ask you a time frame? I got to actually go to the Rose CDC event to raise money for them. So how many more speakers?
Just 3 more in less than 10, 15 minutes, max.
Okay.
I'm sure we could shorten it because we certainly don't want to lose a quorum.
Well, there's going to be no drama about the vote, too, so.
No drama.
We do
We like that.
We do want to hear, but.
Okay, so we're going to move very.
Actually, we've asked a lot of questions, so it's on us. I just don't want you to lose a quorum.
No. Yes. It's the next 3 will come up while I'm introducing you, and we will have Jamal Dara, Sarah Hersey, and Shelley Stratton. Thank you very much.
It's actually Jamal or them.
So Jamal.
And Tim Harvey.
Great.
My bad. Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for your tireless and patient work. It is not easy to sit in front of so many people all day and listening to all of us whining. But I think it is a part of the deal. It's a part of the job that you sign it. And I think you guys are doing a great job, and I appreciate that.
Sir, can I
Again,
just say that it is a pleasure to have you in the audience. We've had some visitors recently that weren't perhaps as constructive in the way they engaged us, so I thank you for modeling great behavior in a public forum.
Thank you. Again, my name is Jamal Dar. I am representing an African youth and community organization. I just want to recognize Commissioner Amanda. She represented when she was elected to come into our first fundraising in 2011 at Jackson Middle School, and thank you for that. Since 2009, this organization been championed to help immigrant and refugees generation, especially in the East African population. We have started by developing youth mentorship program through Portland metro area, and we now have over 648 kids in our program. We receive and we will be willing to utilize that funding from EPAP. EPAP are the bridge between the city, between the government, between the state, and the community that we represent. So I would definitely advise you to keep that connection, and I would not be here today without the EPAP. So that is how important they are, and we want to keep them forever. The literacy and educational project is for not only for the youth, but also parents. We did, in January of 2015, we sponsor Somali leaders, over 45 members of our community, to understand and bridge the gap of lack of education, especially the graduation rate in the Somali community was 58%. Out of 7% were passing math and science. So from that, the community formed a task force, and that was specifically for Somali community. The task force then implemented a plan where not only necessarily we help for the youth, but also to close that gap between the children who are accepting this different society, different culture, different behavior, and those parents who do not speak English. And doing that, it kind of benefits both aisles. So the two parents and the children can understand one another. So with that, we increase the education rate tremendously for like at least 10% more within 6 months. And because of this funding, we were able to also reach people with disability programs and have, and I know, and I definitely appreciate Madam President. I was part of the New Portlanders Commissioners a couple of Saturdays ago, and I definitely felt that it is important not only for the leaders of our society, you, but also in our community to help individuals who are disabled. The Somali populations have come with two packages. One is ignorance. Second is the civil war and issues. And on top of that, those individuals who are coming into the United States have at least one or two members in disability, intellectually or delayed members or physical disability. That is why we were very important for us to engage and educate those individuals, and not only the community that we represent, but also into society and help them to get a job. So I want to thank you, everything that you guys do, and I appreciate all the hard work that EPAP did. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Natalia Sobolevskaya. I'm bilingual and bicultural in English and Russian. Since I came to Portland in 2000, I have working for nonprofits. Now I'm with Community Energy Project. Thank you for the opportunity to receive the EPOP Civic Engagement Grant, Visualization, and lead prevention workshops for Russian-speaking communities. I have a great deal of experience working as a liaison to the Russian-speaking community. I have been an active member of EPOP since its beginning, was a 2012-2013 winner of VR Portland Award. I am a 2009 graduate of pilot program in leadership for the Center of Intercultural Organizing. I co-founded the Russian-speaking network. I started the crime prevention workshop program with a grant from EPOP, working with teens and parents to prevent and reduce crime within the Slavic community.
I'm a member of the New Portland Policy Commission. Also, I teach Russian to children at my church. Will all my experience a passion to reach out to Russian-speaking community members, I will serve as a primary person for this grant project. I know there is a great need for community energy project services in the Russian community, especially low-income homeowners in East Portland. Working with a community educator, I will ensure all participants receive visualization or LED workshops in Russian, and the instruction will be culturally specific. As a result of the workshops, the participant will be empowered to make their homes more energy efficient, safe and comfortable, and even save money on their monthly energy bills. Participants will learn about lead poisoning prevention and ways to safely deal with lead. I will introduce participants to EPOP and its programs and committees to encourage them to become involved in its subcommittees. The grant project will address EPOP's strategy plan of improving the appearance, quality, and safety on the homes and expanding the numbers of households taking advantage of home repair assistance programs like CEPs in East Portland. Community Energy Project is highly aware of barriers to reaching historically underserved groups such new immigrant population and other people of color. These groups often experience language barriers and can be distrustful of government and government-affiliated agencies. CEP served less than 1% of the Slavic community in 2015 and 16. However, it's striving to reach more. This grant will help tremendously in our efforts. CEP's visualization workshop programs target vulnerable and underserved Portland populations, low-income families, minorities, and other historically marginalized groups. About 70% of CEP clients are extremely low income, living on less than 30% of the median family income, $20,000 annually for a family of 4. Community Energy Project will offer the 5 workshops dedicated specifically to Russian-speaking communities living within the EPOP area. Russian-speaking communities include immigrants not just from Russia, but from Ukraine, Belarus, Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Moldova, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and other former Soviet republics and regions with their own culture and languages. Up to 15 participants will be able to attend each class, totaling 75 participants, each receiving culturally specific hands-on education about visualization and lead prevention. Classes teach to multiple learning styles and are very interactive with hands-on demonstrations. We encourage participants to ask questions and make sure what is being presented is understood. Community Energy Project has offered its services to the Portland community for nearly 40 years. Now working with more than 20 partners to bring the workshops to the EPOP area, including East Portland Community Center, Hazelwood Neighborhood Association, Gateway, Head Start, and Lincoln Elementary. Thank you for funding EPOP civic engagement grants, and we ask the Council to continue to support them. These grants allow many immigrant, low-income community members the opportunity to receive assistance with their basic needs. Спасибо за ваше время.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Harvey Trigoso. I am with Northwest Family Services. We are a nonprofit organization serving the Portland metro area. We've been doing this for over 30 years. And our mission is to equip people with vital skills for a lifetime in support of child well-being and family stability. And we're very excited to propose the Pure Court and Family Empowerment workshops, and those will be in Spanish. We are partnering with David Douglas High School, and The project will serve students and parents and families in East Portland and those in David Douglas. We're going to have a focus on the Latino community, the Peer Corps program addresses a strategy L2 of the EPAP, which is to increase availability of youth-focused programs, as well as EPAP action item L3.2, develop connections between high school students and higher education and workforce development. Peer Corps is an educative and restorative justice program that engages high school students to gain experience in law and criminal justice professions and public speaking skills, and provides a valuable service to the community by holding peers with first-time misdemeanor offenses accountable without involvement in the juvenile justice system. The family empowerment workshops address EPAP strategy L4, which is to increase the academic success of East Portland K-12 students, and strategy L7, increase parental involvement in and access to public K-12 schools. Family Empowerment is a 2-hour multi-family workshop that can serve as a launching point for parents and teens to develop understanding and empathy for one another's experiences. Parents and teens gain a greater knowledge about the developing teen brain, how to support their teen during this time of growth and change, the negative effects of drugs and alcohol, and the long-term effects of truancy. Parents and their teens practice communication skills and create a sense of shared values. Why fund this project? Peer Corps provides important skills for college and workforce development, like public speaking skills, increased confidence, professionalism, experience in criminal justice field, and leadership opportunities that can stimulate interest in higher education. Family empowerment promotes family communication, prevention education on drugs and alcohol, and adolescent development, and parent involvement in school, which can lead to improved academic success of students. Our deliverables are to recruit 25 to 30 East Portland High School students, and in particular Latino students, who will be recruited and trained to become peer attorneys, jurors, and bailiffs in our teen court hearings. So the trainings will happen at David Douglas High School, and the court hearings happen at the East County Courthouse. So they look very real. They're simulated court trials, but we make it seem as close to what a court setting would look like. And the students will receive training from licensed attorneys and judges, and they get a 5-hour training a year with additional coaching throughout the year. We will have up to 30 peer attorneys who will put their training into practice and will do monthly training during the academic year, and will participate in peer court hearings. For family empowerment, we will recruit up to 75 Latino youth and parents who will attend the family empowerment workshops to be held in Spanish at David Douglas High School, and those workshops will be offered monthly during the school year. Latino parents will also be recruited to help co-facilitate and co-lead small group discussions during the workshops, as well as to help with additional follow-up training opportunities for parents, parent skill trainings for parents who have students with attendance issues. This project would involve a lot of participating and working together with parents and students. For Peer Corps, we utilize students to reach out to other students, and also our youth attorneys who are more experienced get to train those younger students who are starting in the program, and it's a really great mentoring experience. And for parents, that would also be co-facilitating with us some of those workshops. That's it.
Thank you. We have one more speaker, Mustafa Finney.
Just maybe you want to make the decision?
Oh.
Commissioner Fish has to leave, and then Mustafa can close.
Well, does that mean Mustafa can say whatever he wants after we're done and we have to do it?
The mic is yours, and the clock is off.
It's been a long day. So should we
move to adopt the report or accept the report?
Second.
Okay. Carla, please take the roll.
Fish.
Well, I want to thank everybody for another outstanding report. And there were some things in the report that frankly troubled me greatly. And the trend line on affordable housing investments in East Portland, I'd like to go back and look at those numbers. That concerns me. I don't have a good answer as to why we don't do mapping anymore at budget time. And we have a citizen budget member
Commissioner,
here.
we actually do.
Huh?
We do. I was going to cover that, but
Well, let me put it this way. I don't have a good answer why we don't have a discussion about the maps and the stuff, because it's not part of any presentation, and therefore, there's no community dialogue. And I thought we were making progress in thinking about how to do mapping. It still is an imperfect science, and I'm an example because I lead the public utilities. And we had a stretch where we were working in 2 buttes and in Mount Tabor. So the numbers were very skewed in terms of the eastern part of our city. Now our focus is Willamette River Crossing and the reservoirs in Washington Park. It still benefits the whole city, but our capital spending will look fundamentally different. And it's not because we're being oblivious to an equity lens. It's the sequence of doing major capital work. Nonetheless, and I'll defer to my colleague and friend Commissioner Fritz on this, I thought that mapping was an interesting exercise. I thought putting them on the table was an interesting exercise. I also have heard some strong arguments for continued investments in things which I think we ought to invest in. And I want to go back just in closing to something someone said. In 2004, when I first had conversations with people in East Portland, what I often heard was, no one cares what we think in City Hall. And for small businesses, I heard, we're moving to Clackamas. Today, it's a partnership. And I think in terms of a community planning exercise, EPAP has done more to create not just a space for these conversations, but a deepening of relationships. And I know we have a lot of catching up, but I don't want the historical deficit to obscure the progress we are making on a whole host of fronts. And it's because of relationships, and it's because of a framework, and I think EPAP has had a lot to do with it. When I say EPAP, I mean the citizen volunteers who have given their time to making this thing come alive. So I'm very proud of this, and I think, Commissioner Fritz, as I look back to the votes you and I have cast as we have had overlapping service, this would have to be one of the handful I'm most proud of, helping to launch it, helping to fund it, and helping to put that funding out of harm's way. So thank you for your continued work educating us. I've taken copious notes, as have my colleagues, about things where we're still falling short. It's a work in progress, but I'm very pleased today to accept your report with my thanks. Aye.
Fritz.
Well, thank you, everybody who was here. Yeah, the budget mapping is institutionalized in that the Budget Office does it, and it's up on their website. In fact, I just, during the presentation, looked up City of Portland budget mapping, and indeed it gets right to it. As Commissioner Fish pointed out, the problem is that we haven't had a discussion about it. So that part we need, potentially Mayor Wheeler was not aware of it, because he plans the budget hearings and budget work sessions. So agreed, and as Commissioner Fish said earlier, that one's on us. I also want to add to Commissioner Fish's list of people to credit with support. And one would be Charlie Hales, Mayor Hales, who was the one who said at the beginning of his term, EPAP, tell us how you're going to go out. What's your plan for a glide to not existing anymore? And over time came to understand that not only is that not happening, but there's a need for ongoing funding, and made that happen. And that, again, was due to the community doing the work and making it very clear to Mayor Hales that this is what you get, and this is why it needs to continue to operate. It was unfortunate that in the auditor's audit of the neighborhood services that she didn't look at the East Portland Action Plan as part of the work that is being supported through partnerships. And I think that's, for me, one of the most exciting things that I've seen over the 8 years that I've been on the council, is so many increasing back and forth with the East Portland Neighborhood Office, the EPAP, and really working together, and the best of each coming to help the others. So I'm really happy about that. there's a piece that you didn't bring up this year, but you did last year, and that was about coordination between the bureaus and coordination between council offices. And the request last year had been, let's have a person within City Hall or within the, here who would be responsible for tracking all of the EPAP action asks and whether they were done or not. And at the time, I said, it would be better to coordinate between the council offices and offered to do that. My bureau assignment was a heavy load over the last year. And so now that I have an assignment that has more capacity for myself and my staff, I will put that on my to-do list to figure out how can we do that better so that it's not all on you to do the reporting. So again, it's more of a partnership. As Commissioner Fish said, I've also made copious notes about things that I'm going to follow up and get back to you on. And I'm just very, very grateful for all the work that's going on in the community that we are partnering. Thank you. Aye.
You, Daly?
Well, thank you everyone for your hard work on this presentation. And I have candy bars for those of you who made it to the very end. That wasn't planned. I think my staff is trying to kill me with candy. You're doing incredibly vital work in East Portland. I have been to a couple EPAP meetings, and I tell this story often. When I received the agenda in advance for my first EPAP meeting, I just thought, oh, Lord, how many days is this going to take? And I was so impressed with how the meeting was run and how efficient and organized everyone was, and it was a great experience. Laura, I would love to follow up with you on the accommodations piece. I'm particularly interested in that, as well as seeing if we could find some more funding for those civic engagement grants as we, in the future, because as Joanne illustrated, the grantees are leveraging an incredible amount of community resources and really making the most of those grants. And I also obviously have a particular interest in your housing issues as well as achieving some of those Vision Zero goals out in East Portland because of recent tragic events. I'm done now.
So I apologize,
Aye.
Madam President, that I have to go. It doesn't preclude taking testimony. We just can't act. And had we had another member, there probably would have been a motion to slap an emergency clause on the next item, but we don't have it. But I don't think there's any drama on supporting the recommendations for the grant. So thank you very much.
We could add one next week.
Yeah.
So at least it'd be
So
just a week
accept it.
instead of 30 days.
We'll be accepting it after Mustafa, or
We just
accept it now?
That's
Okay. It's accepted.
All right.
Thank you for your patience, and I'm very interested to hear what you have to say.
I had a longer presentation, but with time, I'm going to cut it short. My name is Mustafa Finney, and I am the new co-chair of EPAP. Well, I had written that, honestly, I would love to hear what you all thought about EPAP, but you gave me a nice piece of your mind, so I can cut that piece out. I sit on a lot of different committees and meeting circles, and some groups, as you know, you kind of sit there and wish you were somewhere else because you know that after all the talking, nothing is going to happen. In this essence, just meeting to meet. This group was not like that. These fine older folks were able to sway my young spirit and bring me on board because I felt moved, I felt motivated, and I felt hope. I saw a group of passionates gathered into a group of force to be reckoned with. And we should be thankful for groups like EPAP, of whom, when we lose sight of what's important and forget the faces of those who are still at the bottom, they are here to remind us. They're here to bring those small voices to the forefront and empower them to make change as well. All of these efforts, all of these groups, all of these committees that you've heard today, working and engaging in East Portland in a way that is slowly and steadily changing the minds and actions of those it touches, changing the behavior of the communities enveloped in its embrace. advocating for the quiet voices not heard over the roar of popular anthropology. You've seen us and what we can do, and now it's your turn. We need you and the positions that you hold to fight for these people, these families, and these communities that depend on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a lovely way to finish, thank you. And it's somewhat appropriate that the community has the last word, right, Madam President?
And
Thank you very
congratulations
much.
on your new co-chair position.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, our meeting is adjourned.